Chapter 27-25. The closer he got to the millstone-like magnetic mountain, the more terrifying the crushing force was. The abyssal sword cauldron buzzed and trembled, making Lin Sun feel as if he was caught in a terrible whirlpool torrent. Not only was it difficult for him to move forward, but it was also difficult for him to stand still. Boom! The terrible magnetic storm swept over, full of violent tearing and crushing force, and the strange power of space order was surging and sweeping. Although the Nirvana order in the abyssal sword cauldron could swallow the strange power of space, it trembled violently under the impact of the magnetic storm. Even if Lin Sun had pushed his cultivation to the extreme, he still felt extremely strenuous. He couldn't help being surprised. There was no doubt that if it weren't for the abyssal sword cauldron, he would have been torn to pieces and obliterated with his cultivation. Lin Sun no longer tried to get closer. In fact, he couldn't do it at all. Even if he tried his best, he couldn't move an inch. Lin Sun's expression was uncertain. He was trying his best to resist at the moment. If he slacked a little, he would be swept by the magnetic storm in an instant. At that time, even with the abyssal sword cauldron, he couldn't escape the fate of being crushed and obliterated. Under such circumstances, wanting to take the origin magnetic divine mountain was simply wishful thinking. Boom! Suddenly, a huge black stone as big as a house fell off from the magnetic mountain and was swept by the space storm and roared towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun was stunned at first, and then his eyes lit up. He already had an idea in his mind. Whoosh! He retreated dozens of meters. This distance was just enough for him to do other things while resisting the impact of the magnetic storm. Tut! Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed. The house-sized magnetic stone that swept out of this area was like a giant beast tied by a rope. No matter how the magnetic storm impacted, it was still dragged to Lin Sun little by little. Lin Sun exerted his strength with his palms and fingers. With a series of cracking sounds, the stone chips flew and fell. The house-sized magnetic stone turned into a piece of magnetic iron of about 25 kilograms, shining brilliantly. Lin Sun put it away at once with a smile in his eyes. Immediately, his figure flashed, and the 5 Tao forms emerged to drive the abyssal sword cauldron with him. In this way, the pressure on Lin Sun was greatly reduced. Lin Sun even took time to grab a handful of elixirs to refine to replenish the constantly lost power. Not long after, more divine magnetism stones whistled out. This time, there were more than 10 of them, and every one of them was the size of a washbasin. Lin Sun, who had been waiting for a long time, used the power of his doppelganger to collect these magnetic stones one by one. After removing the stone chips, nearly 10 kilograms of metamagnet divine iron entered Lin Sun's bag. Not bad, not bad. Lin Sun's mood relaxed. According to his calculations, using this method to collect divine magnetic iron would still take a very long time to collect 100,000 kilograms, but it was already the most efficient method. This was like casting a net to catch a fish. The magnetic storm was like a lake, and the divine magnetism stones were like a school of fish, with fish popping up from time to time. What Lin Sun wanted to do was to catch all these fish in one fell swoop. In the following period of time, Lin Sun waited here, using the abyssal sword cauldron to resist the violent crushing force. As long as a metamagnet stone flew out, it would be caught by him. 2 hours later, Lin Sun collected 250 kilograms of magnetic divine iron. 2 hours later, Lin Sun collected 600 kilograms. 6 hours later, as time passed, the amount of divine magnetic iron Lin Sun collected also increased. It was like catching fish in a net, and his heart was filled with a sense of harvest. However, the consumption of elixirs also increased. Because he had to resist the power of the magnetic storm at all times, Lin Sun had no choice but to constantly refine elixirs to replenish his energy. But compared to collecting divine magnetic iron, Lin Sun didn't care about these elixirs at all. A day passed quickly. In the outer region of the magnetic wind belt, The cultivators waiting to fight for divine magnetic stones were all very confused at this moment. A day had passed, but not a single divine magnetic stone had rushed out from the magnetic tide. What was going on? Everyone was confused and bewildered. Could it be that guy's doing? Someone muttered, thinking of the young man who had rushed into the magnetic wind belt after killing the 9 Serenity's demon gates Emperor Zhu Long Feng. That guy is probably dead long ago. Moreover, even if he's alive, how could he possibly catch all the divine magnetic stones in one fell swoop? But what the hell is going on? The nearby area was full of bewilderment, and those cultivators all looked very unsightly. In the depths of the magnetic wind belt, not far from the divine magnetic mountain, Lin soon didn't know how anxious and bewildered those cultivators outside were because of him. 9 days had passed in a hurry. The faces of the cultivators waiting to fight for divine magnetic stones darkened, and many of them couldn't stand it any longer. They turned around and left while cursing. At this time, Lin Sun had collected more than 99,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron, and he was only a little bit away from his goal. Although more than half of the elixirs he had collected over the years had been consumed, Lin Sun was happy, excited, and full of a sense of achievement and harvest. Boom! In the distance, another group of divine magnetic stones swept out. Lin Sun, who was already familiar with this task, was quick to catch all these fish in an instant. Altogether, it's already 103 kilograms. Lin soon counted them and was completely relaxed. However, when he was about to leave, a trace of unwillingness surged in his heart when he looked at the huge millstone-like divine magnetic mountain in the distance. It would be great if he could take the whole mountain away. At this time, Lin Sun had a thought, and a bold idea emerged in his mind. After thinking over and over again, he decided to give it a try. In the following time, he concentrated on adjusting his physical strength and restoring his own strength. He even took out some peerless elixirs he had collected and refined them. When his cultivation was restored to its peak state, Lin Sun didn't hesitate any longer. He suddenly drove the abyssal sword cauldron and rushed forward. 30 meters. 300 meters. 3,000 meters. When he was less than 30 meters away from the divine magnetic mountain, it had reached the limit that Lin Sun could bear. At this moment, boom! In the void, the rain of time was released, and it outlined a mysterious portal, which was deep and dark like a door leading to a foreign time and space. The Gate of Exile. At this moment, the slowly floating divine magnetic mountain suddenly trembled as if it was suffering from a terrible pulling force, and it suddenly struggled violently. The heaven and earth here were completely chaotic and violent. In the surroundings of the origin magnetic divine mountain, dense spatial power of order transformed into thick divine chains that appeared in the form of mysterious dark golden chains. Lin Sun was shocked. His guess was right. The strange space order was like a cage formed by countless chains, and it firmly imprisoned the divine magnetic mountain here. As the power of the Gate of Exile was released, the strange space order became a kind of obstacle, preventing the divine magnetic mountain from being swallowed into the Gate of Exile. Go! Without any hesitation, Lin Sun took a deep breath and operated the abyssal sword cauldron to the extreme. The door of exile could only last for 3 breaths of time. They had to take the origin magnetic divine mountain away within this short period of time. Otherwise, this operation would be for naught. Buzz, amidst the strange buzzing sound, the Nirvana order turned into a lotus pattern, and it suddenly released endless light, covering the dense dark gold space order. In just an instant, the dark gold space order power was suppressed, subdued, and absorbed into the Nirvana order, unable to resist at all. Without the imprisonment of the dark gold space order, the divine magnetic mountain moved horizontally in the air uncontrollably, and it was dragged into the Gate of Exile. Boom! At the moment the origin magnetic mountain vanished, the door of exile collapsed and vanished as well. Lin Sun gasped for breath. The gate of exile consumed too much energy. Although it only lasted for 3 breaths, Lin Sun's physical strength, which had just recovered to its peak state, was consumed by more than 70% at once. Even so, Lin Sun was excited and happy, and he felt extremely relaxed. It was done. He used the Gate of Exile as a means to send the divine magnetic mountain to the abyss of absolute nothingness. As long as his strength improved in the future, he would be able to take the divine magnetic mountain from the Gate of Exile sooner or later. What made Lin Sun even happier was that while taking the divine magnetic mountain away, the Nirvana Order also subdued the strange dark gold space order. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. If I don't do this, I'm afraid I'll miss this opportunity. Lin Sun's expression was full of smiles. Without the divine essence-fused mountain and the strange spatial order, this chaotic and violent area actually returned to a state of tranquility at this moment. Lin Sun didn't care about this. He immediately swallowed and refined the spiritual medicine, and his divine sense entered the abyssal sword cauldron. He saw that the dark gold space order had already been suppressed, and it became incomparably obedient. At this time, the spirit of order Wushuang said excitedly, "Master, this is the 8th grade Heaven Step space order. Its nature is violent and fierce, and it has the mysterious power of imprisonment, cutting, reversal, and other mysterious powers. It is far from being comparable to ordinary space order." 8th grade Heaven Step space order. Lin Sun's heart trembled, and he realized that he had picked up a treasure this time. The Heaven Step space order was completely different from the Earth Step space order. Every time the level of the Heaven Step space order was higher, its power would have earth-shaking changes. Let's take the simplest example. They are also immortal emperor clans that control the power of the Heaven Step space order, but forces like the 4 East Imperial clans can only occupy the 7th heaven. The 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven also control the power of the Heaven Step space order, but their status, power, and power are far above those of the immortal emperor clans of the 7th heaven. Why? The core lies in the grade of the Heaven Step space order. It is rumored that the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven all control the power of the 9th step space order, and they control more than one. There is no lack of rare 9th step space order spirits that can be born. In contrast, the grade of the power of the 7th heaven's immortal emperor clans is somewhat inferior. In other words, in a sense, the grade of the power of the order is enough to affect the situation and status of the immortal emperor clans. Chapter 27-26. With such a comparison, a grade 8 heaven rank order power, and one that was related to space, such a treasure could no longer be valued. Because if one had such order power, no immortal emperor clan would exchange it. And this was the reason why Lin Sun was excited. Such a treasure cannot be your food. After Lin Sun calmed down, he dispelled Wushuang's impulse. Wushuang was also very obedient, saying in a crisp voice, "Master, I have already refined a lot of order power, and now I have recovered to a grade 5 heaven rank state. In the future, if Master has no use for order power, you can let me refine it." Lin Sun nodded in agreement. My God, the magnetic wind belt disappeared? This is one of the 3 great restricted areas of the Chaos Demon Sea. It has existed since ancient times. How can it disappear just like that? In the distance, a wave of exclamations sounded. The figures of many cultivators transformed into dazzling divine rays of light and whistled over to this side. The origin magnetic divine mountain also disappeared. Some people were flabbergasted, shocked. This was definitely big news. If it spread, it would cause an uproar in the entire Chaos Demon Sea. But very quickly, the exclamations and uproar disappeared, replaced by a strange silence. Everyone's gazes turned to the same place in unison. A person stood there, tall and elegant, like an immortal descending to the world. It was the mysterious person who killed the 1,000-eyed demon ancestor Long Feng with one palm 9 days ago. When they saw this scene, a thought uncontrollably emerged in everyone's mind. Could the disappearance of the magnetic wind belt and the origin magnetic divine mountain be related to this person? When they thought of this, everyone's heart trembled, their expressions changed. When they returned to their senses from their shock, they noticed that the tall figure had vanished a long time ago. Who was he? What kind of terrifying cultivation did he possess? No one knew. But this matter still spread that day, causing a huge uproar in the entire Chaos Demon Sea. The magnetic wind belt was one of the 3 great restricted areas of the Chaos Demon Sea. It had existed since ancient times, but now it had suddenly disappeared. It was hard not to cause a commotion. What was even more inconceivable was that all the news was spreading that the disappearance of the magnetic wind belt was related to a mysterious person. This was simply unbelievable. But what was certain was that the 9 Hell Demon Gates Emperor Long Feng had died, and he was killed by this mysterious person. It was said that this matter caused a huge commotion in the 9 Hell Demon sect. While the chaotic demon sea was still in chaos, Lin Sun had already returned to Southern Sea Island. Mi Luo Grotto Heaven. Lin Sun appeared under an ancient pine tree halfway up the mountain. Not far away, Mu Wei, who was teaching Qing Feng and Qing Yu how to play chess, was startled and immediately bowed. 3rd-generation disciple Mu Wei greets martial uncle. Lin Sun was also a little surprised, and immediately realized that this should be the instruction of Su Ruogu, the headmaster of Mi Luo Wonderland. Qing Feng and Qing Yu, who were playing chess, also wanted to stand up and salute, but they were stopped by Lin Sun. I personally don't like formalities. You don't have to stick to it. What are you waiting for? Let's continue. Mu Wei scolded with a smile, then he jogged forward and said, Martial uncle, the sect master said that if you return, you can go directly to the Cloud Void Hall. Lin Sun said, Cloud Void Hall? Where is it? I will lead the way. After saying that, Mu Wei took action. Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised. When he first saw Mu Wei, this guy was in charge of the weapon shop. He treated people with a weak and lifeless look. But now he was so clever and clever. Obviously, it was not because Lin Sun was very strong. It was very likely that Su Ruogu had instructed these descendants of Mi Luo Wonderland not to neglect him. As Lin Sun guessed, all the successors he met along the way greeted and saluted him respectfully. None of them was disrespectful. Even Luo Xuanfu, who was usually indifferent, was like this. In this regard, Lin Sun could only respond to them with a smile. Before long, Mu Wei took Lin Sun to the Cloud Void Hall, which was an ancient hall built in the back mountain. After arriving, Mu Wei said goodbye and left. When Lin Sun entered the Cloud Void Hall alone, Su Ruogu, who was meditating in silence, couldn't help but be surprised. He got up and greeted, Younger brother, you returned so soon. Did you encounter any difficult problems? Lin Sun shook his head with a smile. No, but the test has been completed. With that, he waved his sleeve, and the ground was piled up into a small mountain of divine magnetic iron. These treasures were all sealed. Otherwise, just the leaked aura could cause a magnetic storm. Su Ruogu opened his eyes wide and looked at the divine magnetic iron for a long time. Then he sighed with emotion. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Younger brother, you have good means. His heart was in turmoil. According to his previous speculation, it was very difficult to complete the test of 50,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron. After all, it was the origin magnetic wind belt, which even immortals did not dare to enter easily. It was even more difficult to collect 50,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron. Even if it was collected outside the origin magnetic wind belt, it would take years to calculate. But now, in less than a month, Lin Sun returned with a full load. How could he not be surprised? Lin Sun smiled and didn't tell Su Ruogu that even the origin magnetic mountain was moved by him. In that case, Su Ruogu was afraid that the latter would think of him as a monster. Younger brother, put away these divine magnetic iron, and then I will take you to Master's place of retreat." After calming down, Suruoga said. Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and the divine magnetic iron all over the ground suddenly disappeared out of thin air. Then, Suruoga led the way and left the cloud void hall. It didn't take long for Lin Sun to arrive in front of a blessed place. This is the place of retreat of Master. When Master left, he set up a restriction power here. As long as you open it, you can enter it. At that time, you will understand what the second test is. Suruogu explained. Lin Sun nodded and looked around. He immediately found that although there were only 9 restrictions around the blessed enclave, each restriction was mysterious, obscure, and extremely mysterious. "Younger brother, I'll leave first." Seeing this, Suruogu immediately left. There was no one around except for Lin Sun. After thinking about it, he sat cross-legged, abandoned all distractions, and began to concentrate on deducing the power of the 9 restrictions. 3 hours later, Lin Sun opened his eyes, and his expression was uncertain. When he deduced it seriously, he noticed that merely the first layer of restrictions contained boundless profundities, and it was extremely profound, difficult, murderous, and boundlessly terrifying. Lin Sun suspected that if he broke in with his current strength, he would be seriously injured. There was no doubt that this was definitely the work of Master Lu. Only he could set up such an abnormal formation. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun closed his eyes again and deduced calmly. First, he was asked to collect 50,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron, and then he set up such a restriction formation in front of the blessed place. He wanted to see what Master Lu was up to. Time passed day by day. While Lin Sun was deducing the forbidden formation without eating or sleeping, the successors of the Mi Luo Grotto Heaven found out about what happened in the magnetic wind belt, and they couldn't help but be astounded and speculate about the identity of the mysterious man. When Suruoga heard the news, his eyes flickered. "This little brother of mine actually destroyed the origin magnetic wind belt. Isn't this too fierce?" Suruoga's expression was strange. However, thinking of the great things Lin Sun had done in the 1st to the 5th heaven, Suruogu could accept it. "I can't break the 9 restrictions with my attainments in spiritual tattoos. I just don't know if he can do it," Suruogu thought. He was looking forward to Lin Sun giving him another surprise. 1 month later, in front of the blessed place, Lin Sun, who had been sitting motionless, suddenly opened his eyes, made a gesture with both hands, and drew in the void again and again. The divine light transformed by the incantations swept out like a tide. Boom! In an instant, the first layer of the restriction formation that covered the abode rumbled like thunder. Countless Tao markings formed by the rain of light scattered, and then they vanished. Lin Sun had a kind of enlightenment in his heart. This first level of the grand formation was called the 9th sequence formation, and it possessed a formidable force of slaughter. Its might was much more formidable than the Heavenfall Tao formation, and it was capable of easily annihilating an ancestral realm expert. After breaking the mystery of the 9th sequence formation, it undoubtedly gave Lin Sun great encouragement. He rested for a few days until his mind and physical strength recovered. Then he began to deduce the 2nd restriction formation. Soon, he was immersed in it, unaware of the passage of time. The 2nd month, Lin Sun broke the 2nd restriction formation called the 8th sequence formation. The 3rd month, Lin Sun broke the 3rd restriction formation and comprehended the 7th sequence formation. The 4th month, as time went by, Lin Sun could break a restriction formation almost every month. The speed was not fast, but it was not slow either. During this period, Suruogu had come several times and couldn't help but be surprised every time. In the whole Mi Luo wonderland, apart from Lu Boya, his attainments in spiritual tattoos were the most profound. But even he was unable to comprehend the 9 restrictions formation at all. But now, Lin Sun was advancing layer by layer. No wonder Master left such a test. It's obvious that he knows that what ordinary people can't do doesn't mean that my younger brother can't do it. Tsuruogu sighed with emotion. Tsuruogu sighed, finally understanding Lu Boya's intentions. If it were someone else, it would be impossible to do all this. But such a test was not left by an ordinary person. The 9th month. In front of the blessed enclave, there was a clear and passionate buzzing sound. The light rain transformed by countless formation diagrams fell like heavenly flowers, drifting in the void, gorgeous and dazzling. Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, got up and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He felt indescribably relaxed, as if he had removed a heavy shackle. As the 9th restriction formation, called the first sequence formation, was also broken, so far, the 9 restrictions covering the blessed enclave were all broken. At this time, the scene in the blessed enclave was also reflected in Lin Sun's vision. However, at the first sight, Lin Sun was stunned. Because there was a bronze coffin in the blessed enclave. P.S. Thank you for your tips and monthly votes yesterday. Yesterday's explosion was too fierce. Rong Jinyu needed to adjust and recover. Now it could only be said that there would be more updates this month. Chapter 27:27. There was a bronze coffin in the blessed enclave. Lin Sun was surprised. This was Master Lu's meditation place. How could there be a bronze coffin here? Isn't this too inauspicious? After a while, Lin Sun suddenly thought of something and immediately walked in. The blessed enclave was not big. Except for some furnishings such as futons, tables, and stoves, there was only the bronze coffin. The coffin was about 30 meters long. The cover of the coffin was engraved with ancient patterns such as the starry sky, the sun, the moon, the mountains and rivers, and flowers, birds, insects, and fish. It gave off a strong sense of vicissitude. Lin Sun stood aside, his expression uncertain. At this moment, he vaguely recognized the origin of the coffin after careful observation. A long time ago, when he came to Feiyun village from the mine prison, Master Lu had left him an inscribing pen and a yellowing scroll. It was also because of these two mysterious objects that Lin Sun unintentionally opened the heaven accessing place and realized a transformation that defied the natural order and changed his fate. Before the heaven accessing place was opened, a scene left by the Lord of Tongtian's will appeared. It was a scene of a battle. The tall and imposing Lord Heavenspan unleashed a fist strike that split open the green underworld, shattered the void, and opened a mysterious door to all the stars. Later, Lin Sun learned that the everlasting star path was behind the gate of all stars. Unfortunately, the Lord of Tongtian failed. When he went to the gate of all stars, he was stopped by the immortal generals of the star path and failed to enter. When he left, the Lord of Tongtian let out a long sigh. Time is not with me. He also threw a pen and a book into a bronze coffin and strode away with the coffin on his shoulder. This picture was related to Lin Sun's experience of changing his fate when he was a teenager, which left a deep impression on him. How could he not know that the pen and the book thrown into the bronze coffin by the sky-reaching Lord were actually the keys to open the heaven-accessing place? Now, looking at the bronze coffin in front of him, Lin Sun suddenly remembered that this was the bronze coffin carried away by the Lord of Tongtian. This was also what surprised Lin Sun and made him unable to calm down. There was no doubt that the bronze coffin had come from the Master of Skirich, but Lin Sun had no idea what secrets it held. But there was no doubt that this item was extremely important. Otherwise, Master Lu would not have placed it here and protected it with 9 layers of mysterious inhibition formation. After a long time, Lin Sun withdrew his gaze and looked at the blessed enclave again. The Void Valley had told him that the second test left by Master Lu was here. As long as he entered, he would understand. However, even after searching the entire blessed enclave, Lin was still at a loss. He could not find any clues related to the test. In the end, he looked at the bronze coffin again. Is this the test? Lin soon thought for a while and finally decided to open the coffin to find out the truth. He walked forward and pressed his hands on the cold coffin lid. He took a deep breath and exerted force. However, to Lin Sun's surprise, the lid of the coffin, which was engraved with countless mysterious patterns, remained motionless. Even with the power of Juetian Emperor Ancestor, he couldn't move it at all. This was unbelievable. It also made this object even more mysterious. Lin Sun was more certain that the second test of Master Lu was probably related to this bronze coffin. I can't open this coffin by force, so I have to use other methods. Lin Sun released his divine awareness, which covered every inch of the bronze coffin like countless tentacles. He observed and sensed the coffin quietly without missing any detail. But it didn't work either. After a long time, Lin Sun frowned. This coffin was too mysterious. It was really strange that he couldn't open it by force or sense it with divine awareness. But the more it was like this, the more curious Lin Sun became. He sat down cross-legged and began to try other method. But he failed every time. After a long time, Lin Sun suddenly remembered that he used his blood to open the heaven accessing place hidden in the brush and the book. And the secret to opening the bronze coffin had something to do with the bloodline of the Skyspan Lord that flowed through his veins? Thinking of this, Lin Sun suddenly stood up and pricked his fingertip. A drop of bright red blood with horrible emperor power of ancestor realm fell on the bronze coffin. Boom! In an instant, a horrible devouring force gushed out from the bronze coffin, producing a violent roar as if it had been longing for countless years. The blood on Lin Sun's fingertip was drawn by the devouring force uncontrollably and poured on the bronze coffin. This sudden scene made Lin Sun subconsciously want to resist, but he was shocked to find that he couldn't struggle and resist at all. As if he was imprisoned, he could only watch the blood drop by drop from his fingertip and spread on the bronze coffin. It felt like his blood was going to be sucked out. Lin Sun was not a person who would sit still and wait for death, but he was imprisoned all over. It was difficult for him to move his fingers, let alone resist or fight back. With the continuous loss of blood, Lin Sun's qi began to weaken. If this situation were to continue, he would definitely turn into a dried corpse. It was absolutely not a good feeling. It was like watching himself step by step towards death, which made Lin Sun shocked and angry. After a long time, the bronze coffin was stained with a layer of dazzling red blood, as if it had turned into a blood coffin. By this time, more than half of Lin Sun's blood had been devoured, making his face pale and transparent, giving him a strong sense of weakness. Fortunately, the bronze coffin seemed to be full, and the devouring force released by it disappeared immediately, allowing Lin Sun to get out of the confinement state. He immediately grabbed the rare medicine he had collected and refined it. Only then did he feel that the strong sense of weakness was recovering little by little. Looking at the bronze coffin again, the bloody light was flowing as if it was burning. It glowed with an indescribable spirituality, as if it had woken up from endless years of silence. In the center of the bronze coffin, there was a groove that hadn't been there before. At the first sight of it, Lin Sun's mind buzzed. The gate to heaven, which had been floating in his mind all these years, turned into a light and swept out of the sea of consciousness. Clang! Before Lin Sun could react, the gate to heaven turned into a beam of light and inserted itself into the groove of the bronze coffin, fitting seamlessly. As the light converged, the gate to heaven was like a key, perfectly fitting with the bronze coffin. And the bloody light on the surface of the whole bronze coffin all converged towards the gate to heaven. In the end, in the center of the bronze coffin, the gate to heaven turned into a mysterious star map symbol, like a mysterious whirlpool or a black hole in the starry sky. But in Lin Sun's eyes, this star map symbol was more like a big abyss. This series of changes made him unable to calm down. After a while, he calmed down and made a rough speculation in his mind. The bronze coffin needed to be awakened by his devourer of the abyss bloodline, and the gate to heaven was a key that could perfectly fit with the bronze coffin and open it. Thinking of this, Lin Sun had an irrepressible impulse. What was hidden in the bronze coffin left by the Lord of Heaven? Why did it need the cooperation of his own bloodline and the heaven-accessing realm to make changes happen? The answer might be in this coffin. But when Lin Sun was about to open the coffin, a solemn and cold voice suddenly sounded, "Don't open it first!" Lin Sun was stunned and suddenly turned his head. A figure had suddenly appeared outside the abode. He wore a black robe, had gray hair, and was thin like a battle spear that pierced into the sky. His aged and thin face was branded with the marks of time, and he seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. His eyes were clear, deep and cold, with a kind of awe-inspiring majesty. But at this time, when he looked at the young man standing in front of the bronze coffin, his eyes were full of trance, emotion, gratification, excitement, and so on. That old and thin face was clearly filled with excitement that he was trying his best to suppress. After so many years, the child had finally grown up. At this time, Lin Sun was also stunned. His eyes widened little by little, and his heart was like a thunder, setting off turbulent waves. Master Lu. Yes, that was Master Lu, the old man who brought him up, taught him spiritual tattoos, and guided him in cultivation. Lin Sun had never seen his parents since he was a child. Even now, he hadn't really met them. Long ago, in his heart, Master Lu, who had always been strict, eccentric, and irascible, was no different from his father. As far as he could remember, Master Lu was the only family member in his childhood. Master Lu was very strict with him, no matter how he behaved, did things, cultivated, or studied. As long as he made mistakes, Master Lu would definitely lose his temper and severely punish him. Lin Sun had been wronged for many times when he was a child. But as he grew up, he gradually understood Master Lu's good intentions. What Master Lu had taught him in the past enabled him to deal with all difficulties calmly and try his best to solve them when he was alone, instead of blaming others and giving up on himself. It could be said that it was Master Lu's harsh requirements that made Lin Sun never give up or admit defeat, no matter how many dangers and setbacks he encountered, no matter what kind of life and death ordeals he experienced. To some extent, the existence of Master Lu had influenced his whole life invisibly. In these years, Lin Sun fought and traveled all over the world. Among the people he cared about the most, Master Lu was undoubtedly one of them. Now, after so many years, he finally met Master Lu in the Mi Luo Grotto Heaven in the Chaos Demon Sea. For a moment, Lin Sun was completely stunned, and his heart was full of excitement. Bang! Lin Sun knelt down and kowtowed, "Master Lu." His voice was trembling with excitement. Since he started his cultivation, Lin Sun had never bowed to anyone and never bowed to heaven or earth. But now it was the first time he knelt down and kowtowed, because it was Master Lu who raised him up and taught him how to be a man. P.S. Something happened to the goldfish today, so I can only update once. I will make up for what I owe. Chapter 27-28. Lu Boya took a deep breath and strode into the blessed land. He helped Lin Sun, who was kneeling on the ground, up. "You're already a man who is about to step into the immortal realm. Don't kneel on the ground anymore." His voice was filled with gratification and emotion. The young man whose name had shaken the entire eternal true world was brought up by him. In the past, the baby who was still in swaddling clothes had his spirit meridian cruelly dug out. If he had not arrived in time, the baby might have died. Later on, he took the baby and hid in the mine prison. In the blink of an eye, 12 years had passed. More accurately speaking, it had been 12 years, 9 months, and 13 days. When Lin Sun, who had grown into a young boy, was sent away, Lu Boya felt a sense of loss for a long time. He felt as if something was missing in his heart. Over the years, he had been hiding from place to place and rushing about with all sorts of urgent matters. But whenever he thought of Lin Sun, who had been raised by him, he could not help but worry and miss him. Fortunately, over the years, he could often hear news about Lin Sun, and that news was enough to relieve a lot of his worries. Now that he had finally met Lin Sun, how could he not be emotional? The baby in the past could now take charge of everything on his own. Over the years, he had also stirred up an unknown amount of blood and waves in the eternal true world. Then who did not know the ruthless people from the first heaven to the sixth heaven? When the sovereign ancestor saw him, he lowered his head. Mr. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. Just as he was about to speak, he found that there were many questions in his heart, and he did not know what to say. I know you have many questions in your heart. This time, when we meet, I will answer them one by one. After all, you can now face anything. As Mr. Lu spoke, he waved his sleeve. 2 rush cushions, a table, a pot of wine, and 2 wine cups appeared. He sat on the ground with Lin Sun and personally filled Lin Sun's cup with wine. He said with a smile, "You were too young in the past, so I never had the chance to drink with you. Let's drink to our heart's content this time, shall we?" Lin Sun nodded. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Lu Boya threw his head back and laughed. The two of them toasted each other, and quickly finished a pot of wine with the wine and dishes from the past. Lu Boya naturally wouldn't disappoint her, and he took out another jug. It was also at this moment that he sighed with emotion. "This wine can't be said to be very precious, but it was specially brewed by me on the day you were born, and I was waiting for you to grow up so that we could drink it together. I just never imagined that it would be so many years later." Lin Sun scratched his head and laughed happily. Master Lu used to be so strict and harsh to her. Who would have thought that he had buried the wine he brewed himself, hoping to share it with her when she grew up? After a long time and 7 or 8 pots of wine, Master Lu put down his cup and looked at the bronze coffin not far away. "You must have guessed that it was left by your great-grandfather, but you must be wondering what is sealed in it." Lin nodded and said, "Please enlighten me, Master Lu." Lu Boya restrained his expression and became solemn and serious as he said, "This coffin is called Eternity, and it was obtained by your great-grandfather in the ruins of creation when he was young. It was precisely this coffin that allowed your great-grandfather to possess the forbidden natural talent, the grand devouring abyss." Lin Sun was shocked and showed a look of disbelief. Eternity coffin, the ruins of fate, and it was related to the talent of devouring abyss. This news was like a thunderclap, which Lin Sun didn't expect at all. That is to say, my great-grandfather didn't have the talent of devouring abyss, and it was because of this eternity coffin that he obtained this forbidden talent? Lin Sun asked after a long time. Lu Boya nodded. Yes. Although the bloodline of the Luo family from its ancestor to the present is extremely amazing, the talent of devouring abyss is not the ancestral bloodline of the Luo family. It was obtained by your great-grandfather from this eternity coffin. Lin Sun's heart was in turmoil. Only now did he understand that the origin of devouring abyss is far from as simple as he thought. It is not an innate bloodline talent of the Luo family, but obtained from the eternity coffin. It is precisely with this talent that your great-grandfather changed his fate. After leaving the ruins of fate, he advanced all the way on the path of cultivation, showing unparalleled brilliance. At his peak, the power he possessed was so tyrannical that even the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven were afraid of him. At that time, the Luo family had the opportunity to go to the 8th heaven to take root and strive for the position of one of the giants, but unfortunately, in order to set foot on the Eternal Star Road, your great-grandfather disappeared from that time, and his life and death are unknown. Speaking of this, Lu Boya couldn't help but let out a long sigh. At that time, the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven said with certainty that your great-grandfather had been killed, and there was no possibility of him being alive. This was a fatal blow to the Luo family at that time. From then on, the Luo family was unable to recover, and its prestige plummeted. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of one thing. In the vast thousand-battle domain, he once seized a strange blood-stained stone from Luo Ling. It was left by Luo Tongtian. It was also this stone that allowed Lin Sun to obtain the third stage of Luo Tongtian's innate ability, Blade of Time. At the same time, it also allowed Lin Sun to see a shocking scene and understand many things. A long time ago, Luo Tongtian once again opened the Gate of Eternity and wanted to set foot on the Eternal Star Road, but he was blocked by the Star Road Divine General who was covered in dazzling golden light. Although Luo Tongtian had killed the Divine General of the Star Road in the end, he was also riddled with injuries. When he had just taken one step into the door of eternity, he was struck by a mysterious Tao bell and almost died. Immediately afterward, the Gate of Eternity disappeared. Although Luo Tongtian survived, he was surrounded by many enemies who were lying in ambush in the surroundings. Each of those enemies had an extremely terrifying immortal aura. According to Luo Tongtian at that time, these people were immortal giants from the eighth heaven. They regarded the Tongtian Lord as prey and wanted to take away the mysteries of the great abyss talent and the heaven-reaching secret realm from him. Luo Tongtian didn't agree and finally chose to die together with them. That scene finally dissipated with Luo Tongtian's desperate killing. All of this corresponded with what Lu Boya had done, making Lin Sun's heart churn. Only now did he realize that everything that had happened in that scene was actually true. Master Lu continued, "But your grandfather, your mother, and I didn't believe that your great-grandfather was in trouble. In the past years I have been to many places to search, but until now I have found nothing." His expression was lonely, sorrowful, and disappointed. Then where did this eternal coffin come from? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Lu Boya said, "When your great-grandfather left for the last time, he left 5 treasures in the Luo family. One is the heaven-reaching secret realm, one is the talent stone, one is the eternal coffin, one is the blade of light and shadow, one is the sword of fate, and the last is the Wuji book. Because your grandfather Luo Shao failed to awaken the talent of the devouring abyss, he handed the sword of fate to your uncle for safekeeping, the heaven-accessing place to your mother, and the eternal coffin to me. And the 3 treasures, the talent stone, the blade of light and shadow, and the Wuji book, were treated as the most precious treasures of the clan and were kept by the patriarch. You know what happened next. Your grandfather, Luo Shao, was defeated in the competition to inherit the position of the patriarch. His position was usurped by Luo Chong of the branch family. The talent god stone, blade of light and shadow, and Wuji godly tome fell into Luo Chong's hands. Hearing this, Lin Sun already understood. The heaven gift stone was most likely the strange jade stone in Luo Ling's hand. It could sense the bloodline power of the great abyss devourer, and was branded with the 3rd stage divine ability of the Lord of Heavenspan, the Blade of Time. Now, it had been inherited by him. As for the blade of light and shadow, it was an immortal Tao weapon filled with a trace of the power of time. After he killed Luo Yun Mountain, it was banished to the abyss of nothingness. He would definitely be able to control it in the future. As for the heaven-reaching secret realm, he had obtained it when he was young, and the sword of fate was given to him by his mother Luo Qingxuan not long ago. That was to say, he had obtained 4 of the 6 treasures left by the Tongtian Lord. And the 5th treasure, the eternal coffin, was right in front of him. Only the Wuji book was still in the Luo family. Lu Boya continued, "When we were in the lower world of the ancient desolation, your uncle gave me the sword of fate when he left, and I gave it to your mother after she regained her previous memory. As for the heaven-reaching secret realm, it was left to you by your mother. Now that you can see me, you must have met your mother and learned something about the past. She must have given the sword of fate to you." Lin Sun nodded and told Lu Boya about how he had obtained the talent stone and the blade of light and shadow. Hearing this, Lu Boya was stunned for a moment, and a touch of anger flashed in his eyes. Luo Chong sent an immortal figure like Mount Luo to deal with you with the blade of light and shadow. Fortunately, you are fine, otherwise. Thinking of the consequences, Lu Boya couldn't help but be afraid. Lin Sun said with a smile, Master Lu, the more it is like this, the more it proves that my existence has made the Luo family feel a serious threat. In my opinion, the death of Mount Luo and the loss of the Blade of Light and Shadow are enough to make Luo Chong and the other clansmen of the Luo family flustered and exasperated. Lu Boya's expression was complicated. He sighed. I promised your great-grandfather that I would not get involved in the internal affairs of the Luo family in this life, nor would I attack any clansmen of the Luo family, including those of the branches. If not, so many things might not have happened in these years. A trace of guilt surged onto his thin and old face. Lin Sun had learned about this from Luo Qingxuan before, so how could he blame Lu Boya? He immediately said softly, Master Lu, when I was a child, you said that a man should keep his word, even if it is a matter of life and death. This is your promise. My mother and I never have any intention to blame you. After a pause, his black eyes were full of firmness. What's more, now that I have come to the sixth heaven, I will solve the affairs of the Luo family. P.S. The second update will be done soon. Chapter 27-29. One of the numbers in the previous chapter regarding the 6 treasures of the Skirich Master was wrong and has been corrected. Lu Boya laughed and said, After passing these 2 tests, I believe that you already have the ability to fight against the Luo family. Speaking of the tests, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile bitterly. Master Lu, it's just a meeting. There's no need to go through such a test. If it were anyone else, they would have already died in the magnetic wind belt. Lu Boya laughed loudly and said, You are you, and the others are other people. They are completely different. Besides, I might have left me Luo Grotto Heaven 60 years ago, but I know everything that has happened in Eternal True World over the past few years. Others may not be able to enter the magnetic wind belt, but you definitely can. After all, even the immortal Emperor clan of the Sixth Heaven knows that you have a trump card that can fight against the power of order. Under such circumstances, it shouldn't be a problem for you to fight against the spatial power of order in the magnetic wind belt. After a pause, he continued, As for the power of the 9 restrictions in the Blessed Enclave and the test of the Eternal Coffin, they were originally prepared for you. It would be strange if you still couldn't solve them. Only then did Lin Sun understand. Turned out that Master Lu had carefully considered these 2 tests. But why did you collect these divine magnetic iron? Lin Sun asked. Lu Boya said, Give me your life Emperor weapon. Lin Sun immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron and handed it over. Lu Boya held it in his hand and looked at it for a long time. His eyes were also filled with amazement. This treasure is no longer comparable to an emperor weapon. Although I don't know its true secrets, I can see that the material of this treasure has a faint immortal charm. Apart from that, there is also the aura of order. It is quite mysterious. I think that over the years, you have treated this treasure as your life's work. Lin Sun couldn't help but admire him. Master Lu, you have a good eye. The abyssal sword cauldron had gone through a strange disaster that had never been seen before. It had also been reconstructed during the disaster and absorbed his essence, qi, and spirit. It had also absorbed the power of the Order Phoenix Flame. Over the years, some of the treasures branded with immortal substance that Lin Sun had obtained were almost completely refined by the abyssal sword cauldron. Even without mentioning that, the abyssal sword cauldron had been immersed in the nourishment of the Nirvana order all year round, which made it completely different. At the very least, in a battle of treasures, the abyssal sword cauldron was no longer afraid of competing with immortal Tao soldiers. Master Lu laughed and scolded, What good eyesight? Since when did you become so glib? He watched Lin Sun grow up and was strict with him since he was a child, so that Lin Sun had the calmness and wisdom that his peers didn't have when he was a teenager. However, it was also because of this that he lacked the liveliness and flamboyance that a young man should have. This was a pity. Looking at Lin Sun in front of him, Master Lu felt gratified. It was as if the seedling he planted had grown into a towering tree that could shelter the wind and rain by itself. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Master Lu, let's talk about the divine magnetic iron." Master Lu handed the abyssal sword cauldron to Lin Sun and said, "Although I can't help you further improve this treasure, I know that the divine magnetic iron is a rare material. It can not only be used to refine immortal weapons, but also withstand the power of time." Lin Sun was surprised. Withstand the power of time? Yes, your great-grandfather's blade of light and shadow was mixed with 100,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron. As a divine material, divine magnetic iron can be imprinted with the power of time. Otherwise, ordinary treasures can't withstand the erosion and destruction of the power of time at all. Lu Boya said. The heaven-devouring abyss talent is related to the power of time. When you awaken the fourth stage of your innate divine ability, you will be able to condense the power of time into a law and brand it into your life emperor armament. With that, when you fight, you will be able to unleash the power of time with just a raise of your hand. And this is the reason why the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven feared your great-grandfather. Lin Sun's heart trembled. He finally understood Lu Boya's good intentions. The 100,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron was clearly paving the way for him to condense the law of time in the future. Lu Boya smiled warmly and said, "The 9 layers of restrictions that enveloped the expanse heaven's abode earlier were refined from origin magnetic divine iron and condensed into 9 formation diagrams of the laws of time. I believe you've already completely comprehended its profundities now. Now that you possess this 50,000 kilograms of origin magnetic divine iron, it'll be sufficient for you to condense a strand of the laws of time within this sword cauldron of yours when you step foot into the eternal realm." Lin Sun's heart was stirred. The power of the 9 restrictions actually had such profound meaning. This was completely beyond his expectation. It could also be seen how meticulous Master Lu's arrangement was. Although Master Lu didn't say anything since they met, nor did he show any excitement or loss of composure, it was obvious that he had been paying attention to Lin Sun and making plans for him all these years. His meticulous care warmed Lin Sun's heart. "If you are touched, just say it. Now I won't treat you as harshly as I used to," Lu Boya said with a smile. Lin Sun also smiled and said, "I just don't understand why 50,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron can only be branded with a wisp of the law of time." Lu Boya stared at him and said grumpily, "You must have experienced the power of the saber of light and shadow." Luo Yunshan didn't have the talent of devouring abyss, nor did he master the law of time, but he could still use it. How terrible its power is! But the saber of light and shadow was only branded with a wisp of the law of time. Lin Sun said, "What if I have more divine magnetic iron?" Lu Boya was stunned and immediately realized something. With a strange expression, he said, "It seems that the recent rumor is true. The divine magnetic mountain in the magnetic wind belt was indeed taken away by you." Lin Sun acquiesced with a smile. "In this case, it's true that I can brand more of the law of time. But I haven't tried it yet. When the time comes, we can think about it together," Lu Boya said in a low voice. "With Master Lu's help, it's absolutely feasible." Lin Sun flattered him without a trace. Lu Boya pointed at Lin Sun and couldn't help laughing. This boy was really different from when he was a child. "Master Lu, what's your cultivation now?" Lin Sun suddenly asked. This mystery had been hidden in his heart for a long time. Lu Boya thought for a moment and said, "I've almost recovered to 80% of my previous level. Well, it's probably equivalent to the immortal realm of different longevity realms in this era. But if it's to kill enemies, with my attainments in Taoist patterns, I don't need to worry too much even if I encounter opponents in the Nirvana realm. The same longevity realm? 80%? Lin Sun looked surprised and said, Master Lu, why were you chased by characters like Star Destroyer and the Nameless Supreme Emperor when you were in the mortal world? It was incredible. If she was suppressed by the power of rules in the mortal world, then Star Destroyer was also suppressed. Xing was also being suppressed, but it was this woman who had personally destroyed the mine prison, forcing Lu Boya to have no choice but to escape. In short, Lu Boya was too weak at that time. This is related to the 5 signs of decay. Lu Boya didn't seem surprised by Lin Sun's question and said, Your mother should have told you that I was lucky to survive from the last era. However, even with the help of your great-grandfather, my cultivation has been affected by the 5 signs of decay until now. This kind of tribulation was born in the destruction of the era. It is extremely horrible. The so-called 5 signs of decay refers to the body, soul, heart, mind, and cultivation. All 5 kinds of forces will suffer from the disaster of decay. The disaster of body is also known as the disaster of body. Once you suffer from it, your body will decay and die. The disaster of soul is a disaster aimed at the soul. The disaster of heart is the weirdest. Once you suffer from it, your state of mind will collapse and you will go crazy and lose consciousness. The disaster of will is aimed at the power of will. Even if you leave the power of will in the world, it will be erased. The disaster of cultivation is naturally aimed at the cultivation. Under the 5 signs of decay, all living beings, regardless of their level of cultivation, will be destroyed forever. Even those who are as powerful as those in the eternal immortal realm can't escape the threat of the destruction of the era. His voice was low and carried dense fear. The last era was so dazzling and glorious, yet only a small group of people were able to survive the destruction of that era. In the past, I relied on a supreme talisman treasure left behind by my sect to resist the disaster and survive. But for countless years, I've always been affected by the power of the 5 signs of decay. When he heard this, Lin Sun couldn't help but be horrified. He recalled the spirit of order, Wu Shuang. She was the spirit of order of the heavenly Tao of a world. She was supreme and stood above all living beings. But during the destruction of the era, she encountered the 5 signs of decay, and she had almost disappeared. And according to what Master Lu said, even those who were as powerful as those in the eternal immortal realm would suffer the threat of such a great disaster. Just thinking about it made one feel horrified. When I was in the eternal world, your great-grandfather used a forbidden secret technique to help me get rid of the power of the 5 signs of decay in my body, and it allowed me to maintain my peak combat strength. Lu Boya said, But since your great-grandfather left and I fled to the mortal realm with your mother and uncle, the power of the 5 signs of decay in my body acted up, and my cultivation was on the verge of collapse. That's why I had no choice but to endure and lay dormant. Otherwise, how could I have watched as you and your parents were in danger all those years ago? His voice was filled with resentment, helplessness, and bitterness. The 5 signs of decay. Only those who had truly experienced it knew how terrifying it was. At this moment, Lin Sun finally understood why Master Lu was so weak all those years ago. So it was related to the 5 signs of decay. Are you still affected by this calamity? Lin Sun couldn't help but ask. Lu Boya nodded. In the past, your great-grandfather and I conducted numerous tests and deductions. In the end, we came to the conclusion that if we don't see through the secrets of eternity, we will definitely be unable to get rid of this strange power. It's precisely because of this that your great-grandfather persisted in charging into the gate of eternity. He was worried that he would encounter the 5 signs of decay one day, and he intended to prepare a method to deal with it in advance. Unfortunately, in the end, he still failed. P.S. I'll make up for yesterday's chapter tomorrow. Library of Literature. Chapter 2730. The purpose of Luo Tongtian's adventure in the Eternal Road was to see through the mystery of eternity and find a way to fight against the 5 signs of decay. Knowing the truth, Lin soon realized that he had underestimated the power of the 5 signs of decay. This kind of tribulation born in the destruction of an era was definitely a peerless tribulation on the road of cultivation. Master Lu, does it mean that your cultivation will be affected if the 5 signs of decay still exists in your body? Lin Sun asked worriedly. Lu Boya was very open-minded, and he said with a smile, after going against this tribulation for so many years, I've already roughly figured out the profundities within it. Under the suppression of my current cultivation, the 5 blight tribulation within my body will only erupt once every 100 years. So long as I don't fight desperately before it erupts, then it's unable to threaten me. Lin Sun asked, what if it breaks out? Lu Boya was silent for a moment before he said, then we'll suppress it again. Although it will be very dangerous, I've already fought against it many times. Being able to survive until now, I already have experience. The only troublesome thing is that every time the 5 fades tribulation erupts, I will fall into a weakened state of 100 years. At that time, my cultivation will at most be at the level of a quasi-emperor. A quasi-emperor? Lin Sun sighed in his heart. For anyone who had stepped into the immortal realm, it was like being pushed into the abyss. At that time, any Emperor Realm expert could easily kill him. The next moment, Lin Sun said seriously, one day, I will completely cure Master Lu's disease. Master Lu smiled. I have lived for so many years that I don't care how long I can live. In the past, I didn't dare to die because I had a lot of things to do. I tried my best to survive. But now, you can take charge of things on your own, and your great-grandfather has a successor. Even if I die now, I have no regrets. Lin Sun's heart tightened and he said, Master Lu, you have to live with me. In any case, I won't let the 5 signs of decay take your life. His words were resolute. Master Lu said with a smile, well, I'm looking forward to when you can solve the problem of Luo family and fulfill your great-grandfather's unfulfilled wish. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun said, Master Lu, in fact, before I came to the Chaos Demon Sea, I had made up my mind to visit the Luo family after meeting you. Lu Boya nodded and didn't find it strange. He said, I expected it would be like this. Your mother is most worried about your uncle and grandfather. I've already obtained information that your uncle intended to search for the ruins of Myriad Dao after he left the ancient path in the starry sky all those years ago, but he failed in the end. Now, it's very likely that he's been captured by the Luo clan's branch and suppressed in the Luo clan. As for your maternal grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, it's highly likely that he's imprisoned in the Luo clan. Otherwise, the light shadow saber and the innate divine stone wouldn't have fallen into the hands of the Luo clan's branch. It's even possible that the limitless divine book is already in Luo Chang's hands. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and said, so my uncle and grandfather are now in the Luo family? Lu Boya said, whether it's true or not, you'll know when you go to the Luo clan. In fact, with your current battle prowess, you shouldn't encounter too great of a threat even if you go to the Luo clan. Lin Sun was surprised. Why do you say this, Master Lu? Lu Boya sighed and said, the world knows that the Luo clan has long been in decline, but I'm afraid no one can imagine that the Luo clan is not only declining in strength, but also in a worrying situation. It's like a building that is about to collapse, and it may be expelled from the 6th heaven at any time. Lin Sun was surprised. He had long thought that the power of the Luo clan was not as great as before. After all, the Luo clan at its peak stood in the 7th heaven and dared to wrestle with the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven. But since Luo Tongtian disappeared for countless years, the Luo clan's momentum has plummeted. It was directly expelled from the 7th heaven and came to the 6th heaven with a dispirited face. As early as in the starry sky ancient path, Lin soon heard that even in the sixth heaven, the power of the Luo clan is still difficult to change, and with the passage of time, it's getting worse and worse year by year. Among the immortal emperor clans in the sixth heaven, the Luo clan can only be ranked second. The reason why Lin Sun planned to go to the Luo clan after meeting Lu Boya is that the current Luo clan is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. However, he still didn't expect that the situation of the Luo clan would be so embarrassing and unbearable that it is almost impossible to survive in the sixth heaven. There are many tyrannical characters in the branches of the Luo clan, but compared with the main bloodline, they lack some foundation and maturity. Since Luo Chong took control of the patriarch's power, almost all the duties and authority originally controlled by the members of the main bloodline have been deprived and handed over to the members of the branch bloodline. Since then, there has been a huge irreparable crack in the clan. Lu Boya's eyes carried a complicated expression. In the past countless years, the main branch of the Luo clan has been miserably suppressed. Merely this protracted internal strife has caused the Luo clan to suffer a great loss. Coupled with the covetous eyes of the other powers that ceaselessly encroach upon and annex the territory controlled by the Luo clan, it's impossible for the Luo clan not to decline under such internal and external troubles. If your great-grandfather was still alive and saw that the country he built up has become such a mess, I'm afraid he would be very disappointed. In this regard, Lin Sun's heart was calm. He didn't care about the rise and fall of the Luo clan at all. He just wanted to completely end this grievance. That's all. I know that you hate the Luo clan so much that it's impossible for you to have any sense of identity with them, Lu Boya said, but what I want to tell you is that the branch of the Luo clan is a branch of the Luo clan. They can't represent the whole Luo clan, and the power that has persecuted you over the years comes from the branch of the Luo clan. Speaking of this, he couldn't help sighing. In fact, even if the members of the main bloodline of the Luo clan want to persecute you, they don't have this opportunity. For countless years, the elders of the main bloodline have been imprisoned on the Thunderbolt Mountain. With the suppression of the power of order, how can they have the opportunity to stir up trouble? If it weren't for this, your mother and your uncle wouldn't have left the Luo clan with me that year. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, Mr. Lu, I probably understand what you mean. If there is a chance, I will help them. Lu Boya smiled with relief. I believe that this is also what your mother wants to see. Luo Qingxuan was a direct descendant of the main bloodline. In the past, she was also persecuted by the branch of the Luo clan. If one traced back to the root cause, the main bloodline and Lin Sun were all victims. How could Lin Sun not understand this point? After thinking for a while, he asked, Mr. Lu, can you tell me about the power of the Luo clan now? Lu Boya said, Luo Chong is the patriarch, as well as the leader of the branch clansmen. Including Luo Chong, the branch originally had 3 undying beings overseeing it. However, Luo Yunshan has already died in your hands. Now, only Luo Chong and Luo Yunha are left. Lin Sun was stunned. 2 immortal characters? This seemed incredible. The huge Luo clan, even if only the power of the Luo clan was counted, only had 2 immortal characters left. This was too shameful. Lin Sun had traveled in the 5th heaven for many years. He was very clear that even in the 5th heaven, the top immortal emperor clans had 3 or 4 immortal characters. Compared to them, the power of the Luo clan's branch was somewhat lacking. Even if Luo Yunshan was added, the power of the Luo clan's branch still surprised Lin Sun. An immortal character can support an immortal emperor clan. With your current power and knowledge, don't you know what an immortal character means? Lu Boya saw through Lin Sun's thoughts. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did this kid really think that immortal characters were common? In terms of individual battle prowess, such existences could call the wind and summon the rain in the entire eternal true world. Lin Sun also realized that his thinking was a bit one-sided. In fact, to any cultivator in the world, An imperial clan that possessed two eternal figures was far from something an ordinary power could compare to. Moreover, this was only the power of the Luo clan's branch. It did not represent the entire Luo clan. However, there is nothing wrong with your thinking. Lu Boya looked at Lin Sun and sighed. It's not that the Luo clan is not strong enough. It's just that the current Yu is no longer the same as before. Over the years, the Luo clan had been declining, and Lin Sun was constantly getting stronger. Today, his ferocious might shook the world, causing many immortal forces in the sixth heaven to have a headache. His enemies in the seventh heaven hated him to the bone. Even the 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven had to face him head-on. Looking at the current Luo clan, although it was said to be a centipede with 100 legs, it had long been declining. It was in a precarious situation in the sixth heaven. In comparison, the current Luo clan was indeed very shabby in Lin Sun's eyes. Of course, this was relatively speaking. The Luo clan not only had 2 immortal characters, but they also controlled the power of the clan and accumulated resources over countless years. This was something that Lin Sun could not compare to. Next, Lu Boya and Lin Sun talked about the Luo clan. Soon, Lin Sun understood. In these years, some of the great figures of the Luo clan, such as Emperor Shi Tiandi, Luo Yunshi, Yan Xing, Luo Yuni, and so on, had all died in the Starry Sky ancient path. Although they were only Emperor realm experts, they were still the backbone of the Luo family's branch. Their deaths were a huge blow to the Luo family's branch. Among the younger generation of the Luo clan, Luo Ling and Luo Chen were very dazzling and could be called the top figures among their peers. But as early as in the immortal Phoenix world, Luo Chen had already died in Lin Sun's hands, and Luo Ling was still suppressed in Lin Sun's abyssal sword cauldron. The only one who was truly amazing was Luo Chong's grandson, Luo Feng. He was a dazzling figure who Luo Chong exhausted the power of the clan and spent countless cultivation resources to fight for the opportunity to enter the Ju clan ancestor realm. This Luo Feng was also placed high hopes on by the entire Luo clan. The second night was before 7:30, and there will be more tonight. Chapter 27:31. Juetian Emperor Ancestor was enough to make the top 10 giants of the 8th heaven scramble to recruit him. It was worthwhile for the branch of the Luo family to exhaust all the resources to create a Juetian Emperor Ancestor like Luo Feng. After all, even if an immortal Emperor clan wanted to use resources to raise a Ju-ing Emperor Ancestor, it would still depend on luck. Unfortunately, all this was nothing in Lin Sun's eyes. Strictly speaking, Lin Sun didn't care about the power below the immortal level at all. However, one thing that Lu Boya said attracted Lin Sun's attention. The first was the Wuji book, one of the 6 treasures left by the Tongtian Lord. It was a rare treasure with a total of 9 volumes, each of which had a secret map related to spiritual tattoos. According to Lu Boya, the treasure, the Wuji book, was actually the most precious treasure of the sect he obtained from the last era. Master Lu, my mother said that your master was a reclusive talisman sect in the last era? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Lu Boya nodded while recollection suffused his face. He said, "Yes, on the day I took a master as my disciple to cultivate, I was warned by my master not to mention anything related to the sect for the rest of my life. Otherwise, it's extremely likely for me to cause an unimaginable disaster." Speaking of this, Lu Boya showed a strange and helpless smile. Later I knew that my master lied to me. He was worried that I would do evil in the name of the sect, so he warned me like this. But I never complained about my master. It was under his teaching that I mastered the most unique talisman Taoism inheritance in the world from an ordinary boy. His voice was full of heartfelt gratitude and admiration. "Master Lu, can you tell me in detail about your master?" Lin Sun couldn't help but become more and more curious, because his attainments in Tao inscription were inherited from Lu Boya. Over the years, with this Tao inscription inheritance, he had helped him resolve countless dangers. It also made Lin Xuanxian realize that this kind of Taoist pattern inheritance was not simple, because he had never seen any kind of Taoist pattern inheritance in the world that could be compared with what he had mastered in all these years of cultivation. As Master Lu said, this inheritance was unique because it didn't belong to this era at all. There's no harm in telling you. My master's surname is Li, and his name is Fuyao. A dazed expression suffused Lu Boya's eyes, and he seemed to be immersed in the memories of a very long time ago. Li Fuyao. Lin Sun thought to himself, this is an extraordinary name. Master has always claimed to be a sword cultivator. In fact, Master's sword Dao techniques are indeed terrifying beyond compare. In any case, in all the years I've been cultivating, I've never seen anyone who could block Master's sword. Even supreme figures known as Almighties can't. But Master often says that even though his sword Dao is strong, it's inferior to his junior brother. When he spoke up to hear, Lu Boya couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Unfortunately, Master never said who this little junior brother of his is. Lin Sun couldn't help being surprised. Since they are fellow disciples, why don't you want to mention his name? I don't know. Lu Boya smiled bitterly, and then he revealed a sorrowful expression as he said, before the era was annihilated, Master once exhorted me that the calamity of the era's annihilation was approaching, and he wanted to help the sect fight. He asked me to be careful in the future. Moreover, he specially said that the Infinite Codex is the supreme secret treasure of our sect, and it ought to be sufficient to help me survive the annihilation of the era by relying on it. But even though I survived, I still don't know where Master went to fight all those years ago, and if he survived. Lu Boya's expression became even more sorrowful. What's laughable is that I still don't know the origins of the sect Master belongs to. Lin Sun stared blankly for a while before he said, in this way, the sect Senior Li Fuyao belongs to is really mysterious. Lu Boya laughed, shook his head, and discarded all distracting thoughts as he said, all of these are matters of the past, and they're matters of the last era. It's meaningless to talk about all of this now. I just want to tell you that no matter what, you must seize the Infinite Codex from the Luo clan this time. His voice revealed a resolute tone. After your great-grandfather saved me all those years ago, I resolved that I must select an inheritor from his descendants. Firstly, it's for the sake of repaying his kindness, and secondly, it's not to let the inheritance of my sect be severed. At the beginning, I chose your grandfather. Even though he hadn't awakened his innate strength, he had no problem cultivating the Tao of spiritual tattoos. But I never expected that a shocking change would occur when he was about to inherit the position of patriarch, and it caused the blade of light and shadow, the innate divine stone, and the infinite codex that he possessed to be seized by Luo Chong. Fortunately, your comprehension isn't bad, and you've been cultivating the Tao of spiritual tattoos by my side since a young age. Once you seize the infinite codex back in the future, it'll be sufficient to allow my sect to continue on forever. When he spoke up to hear, Lu Boya's expression was filled with gratification. When he was young, he was just an ordinary wild kid with mediocre aptitude, and it was by chance that he was taken as a disciple by his master. In contrast, Lin Sun's aptitude was much better than his. In Lu Boya's view, as long as Lin Sun could inherit the infinite codex, his attainments in the Tao of spiritual tattoos would definitely be higher than his. Lin Sun took a deep breath and promised solemnly, "Don't worry, Master Lu. I won't let you down." Immediately, Lin Sun hesitated and said, "Master Lu, I still have a doubt in my heart." "Go ahead." When my grandfather and Luo Chong competed for the position of patriarch, even if my grandfather was inferior to Luo Chong in all aspects, he was the legitimate son of my great-grandfather after all, and there were many elders of the main branch of Luo family standing behind him. But why was his power usurped by Luo Chong? Lin Sun was puzzled. Luo Qingxuan once said that before she inherited the position of patriarch, her father, Luo Xiao, disappeared mysteriously, which gave Luo Chong a chance. But at that time, didn't the elders of the main branch of Luo family notice that it was very likely to be a conspiracy? Or why couldn't they wait until the truth of Luo Xiao's disappearance was found out before they elected the patriarch? There must be something fishy about it. A mocking expression appeared on Lu Boya's face. Your mother didn't tell you the truth. I'm afraid that you will look down on the elders of the main branch of Luo family. Since you asked, I don't mind telling you. At that time, your mother and your uncle were still young. Although Luo Chong, who was the same generation as your grandfather, had the cultivation of emperor ancestor, he never married and had children. Before he inherited the position of patriarch, shortly after your grandfather disappeared, a woman suddenly appeared beside Luo Chong. Hearing this, Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly. Is there something wrong with this woman? Yes, this woman's origin is mysterious, and her means are extremely powerful. She once summoned many immortal characters of the seventh heaven to visit the Luo family. She said that they came to visit the Luo family, but in fact, they came to support Luo Chong. After this woman showed such power, she immediately spread the news that she would become Taoist companions with Luo Chong, and promised that as long as Luo Chong became the patriarch of the Luo family, she would do her best to help the Luo family rise. At least, they wouldn't be excluded by other immortal emperor clans in the seventh heaven. Did the elders of the main branch of the Luo family agree? Lin Sun frowned. Lu Boya sighed. At that time, the Luo family was already in a bad situation. They were excluded by many major forces in the seventh heaven. If they don't make any changes, it is very likely that they will no longer be able to stand in the seventh heaven. At that time, your grandfather's whereabouts were unknown, so the elders of the main branch of the Luo family agreed to this matter. His voice became lower and lower. Hearing this, Lin Sun felt uncomfortable. These elders of the main branch of the Luo family are too muddle-headed. They actually pinned the hope of maintaining the status of the Luo family on a woman of unknown origin. Isn't it ridiculous? At that time, the situation of the Luo family was indeed not optimistic, and the means shown by that woman and Luo Chong were also very powerful. They vowed to guarantee many things, which made the entire Luo family excited, thinking that they saw the hope of rising again. Lu Boya's expression was complicated. At that time, your mother and uncle were young, and they didn't have the ability to stop all this. I was investigating the disappearance of your grandfather in the outside world. When I rushed back to the Luo family, Luo Chong had already taken over the power of the patriarch. Lin Sun also sighed in his heart. What these elders of the main branch of the Luo family did was no different from asking a tiger for its skin. However, even if I was there at that time, I'm afraid I couldn't stop all this, because I promised your great-grandfather that I would never interfere in the internal affairs of the Luo family. Lu Boya laughed at himself. This may be called a trap of one's own making. Even I didn't expect that your great-grandfather would suddenly suffer a disaster, let alone that the Luo family would become so chaotic and unbearable. Lin Sun comforted him. Mr. Lu, at least you helped my mother and uncle escape from the Luo family. This is enough. He was worried that Lu Boya would blame himself again, so he immediately changed the topic. However, after Luo Chong became the patriarch, he didn't seem to change the fate of the Luo family being expelled from the seventh heaven. Could it be that the woman changed her mind? Lu Boya sneered. A few years ago, not long after I returned to the eternal world, I found out that shortly after Luo Chong inherited the position of the patriarch, under the instigation of the woman, he immediately overturned all his previous promises and ordered all the elders of the main branch of the Luo family to be suppressed and imprisoned. The other people of the main branch of the Luo family were also implicated, and all of them were in bad situations like prisoners. Later, I learned that the reason why the woman became Taoist companions with Luo Chong and supported him to become the patriarch was because of the heaven-reaching secret realm, the Sword of Fate, and the eternal coffin left by your great-grandfather. But you also know that these 3 treasures were taken away by me, your mother, and uncle, causing the woman's wishful thinking to fall through. How could she sincerely help the Luo family gain a firm foothold in the 7th heaven? After listening to this, Lin Sun completely understood. He couldn't help but sneer. The members of the Luo family probably didn't expect that the woman who slept with their patriarch had evil intentions from the beginning, right? This is called asking a tiger for its skin. You reap what you sow. There was undisguised sarcasm in his voice. P.S. The update is a little late. Chapter 2732. Does Master Lu know who that woman is? Lin Sun couldn't help but ask. After thinking about it for a while, he knew that Luo Chong and the branch clansmen had almost no hope of usurping the patriarch's power. The key was this woman of unknown origin. Facts also proved that this woman harbored evil intentions from the very beginning, whether it was becoming Luo Chong's Taoist companion or supporting Luo Chong to take the patriarch's power. She called herself Pei Ru, which is obviously a fake name. In the eternal world, there is no immortal emperor surnamed Pei. Lu Boya said, after many years of investigation, this woman is very likely related to the Wang family of the 8th heaven. Wang family? Lin Sun couldn't help but think of one thing. Back then, outside the god's relic, Martial Uncle Kong Ju was seriously injured by a sudden sword attack, and 4th senior brother Ling Xuanzi was on the verge of despair. It was also at that time that Lin Sun, who was so angry that he almost went mad, remembered the origin of that sword attack. Wang family, the first immortal giant of the 8th heaven, the Sword of Judgment. At that time, Lin Sun swore that if he could survive, one day, he would return it 10-fold or 100-fold. Wang family, Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. It seems that even when my great-grandfather was in trouble, they never gave up the idea of seizing my great-grandfather's relics. The master of Tongtian was once besieged by the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven in front of the Gate of Eternity and had to fight with his life on the line. These scenes were still imprinted in Lin Sun's mind. How could he forget them? And now, the tentacles of the Wang family actually reached into the Luo family to seize the heaven-accessing place, the eternal coffin, the sword of fate and other treasures. Lin Sun couldn't help but be filled with killing intent. It should be so. All these years, this woman named Pei Ru has been staying in the Luo family. There is no doubt that she must have long known that the heaven-accessing place and other treasures were obtained by you. Lu Boya said. Luo Chong actually tolerates such a woman who goes back on her words and harbors evil intentions? Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised. Lu Boya sneered and said, Luo Chong's position as clan head was obtained by relying on the power and influence possessed by this woman. How could Luo Chong have the guts to turn against her? As far as I know, there are still many members of the Luo clan's branch who fantasize about capturing you and your mother. As long as Pei Ru gets what she wants, they can use Pei Ru's power to change the Luo clan's precarious situation. Lin Sun almost couldn't believe his ears. The heaven-accessing place and other treasures were left by my great-grandfather. They are the most precious treasures of the Luo family. How could they bear to give them to that woman? Lu Boya sighed softly. As far as they're concerned, it's a treasure that your maternal great-grandfather left behind for the main bloodline of the Luo family. No matter how reluctant they are to part with it, as long as they can exchange it for Pei Ru's help, they're willing to risk it all. Lin Sun's face was gloomy. No wonder they chased us to the starry sky ancient road so crazily these years. Therefore, when you go to the Luo family this time, you have to be careful of this woman. I suspect that she is not only after the heaven-accessing place and other treasures, but also to seize the bloodline of the devouring sky of abyss in you. Lu Boya reminded. Lin Sun nodded. Lu Boya looked at the eternal coffin not far away and said, This treasure was obtained by your maternal great-grandfather from the ruins of fate. It's extremely mysterious, and it's also from this treasure that your maternal great-grandfather has the talent of the devouring sky of abyss. Now that you have the power to control it, I can hand it over to you without any worries." Lin Sun was stunned and said, "Master Lu, what on earth is hidden in the eternal coffin?" Lu Boya said, "Your maternal great-grandfather once said that this thing is related to the way of eternity. It's also from this thing that your maternal great-grandfather found the secret map to the eternal star path. As for what secrets it hides, only you can explore it yourself." After a pause, he continued, "However, according to your maternal great-grandfather's instructions, it's better not to open this coffin before you embark on the way of immortality. This is also the reason why I stopped you from opening it before. This coffin could only be opened after stepping into the way of immortality." Lin Sun was stunned. He suppressed his curiosity and said, "I'll listen to Master Lu." "Yes, you listen to your maternal great-grandfather." Lu Boya laughed. He flipped open his palm and passed a jade scroll to Lin Sun. "This is a jade scroll your great-grandfather left behind for me. The secret method to retrieve this treasure is recorded within. Without this secret method, even an undying figure would find it hard to move this treasure in the slightest." Lin Sun suddenly understood why he couldn't move this bronze coffin even though he tried his best. It turned out that there was a secret hidden in it. He took the jade slip, probed it a little, and comprehended the secret method in it. He immediately stretched out his hand to make a gesture, and an obscure Taoist sound came from his lips. Buzz. Suddenly, the bronze coffin trembled and glowed with a mysterious chaotic luster. In a flash, it shrank countless times and finally turned into a green light that swept into the space between Lin Sun's eyebrows. Just like the heaven-accessing place, it floated in the sea of consciousness, extremely mysterious. "Now, what else do you want to ask?" Lu Boya asked. Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "Master Lu, do you know summer solstice?" "Summer solstice?" Lu Boya was stunned and looked puzzled. Lin Sun immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron and carried out Summer Solstice, who had been sleeping in it and was nourished by the Nirvana order. "She is Summer Solstice," Lin Sun said, and told him some information about Summer Solstice. When he learned that Summer Solstice had appeared by Lin Sun's side as early as in Feiyun village, Lu Boya narrowed his eyes in surprise. And when he learned from Lin Sun about the shackles of fate in Summer Solstice's body, his body stiffened. He seemed to realize something and said emotionally, "What Brother Tong Tian said back then is actually true." Lin Sun was excited and couldn't help asking, "Master Lu, what is true?" Over the years, he had speculated about Summer Solstice's origin more than once, but it was still a mystery. Lu Boya recalled. "All those years ago, not long after your great-grandfather obtained the eternal coffin in the ruins of creation, he once told me that obtaining this treasure allowed him to possess the opportunity to change his destiny. But at the same time, he was tainted by the karma of destiny. At that time, your maternal great-grandfather was worried because he didn't know whether this karma was good or bad. But he inferred that this karma would appear on his descendants. When he spoke up to hear, Lu Boya gazed at Summer Solstice, who was in deep sleep, and his gaze was subtle and carried a strange expression. I originally thought that after so many years, it was extremely likely that the karma your great-grandfather spoke of all those years ago didn't exist at all. But now it would seem like it has come true." Lin Sun was stunned. "The karma that accompanies the eternal coffin?" Lu Boya nodded. "This is what your maternal great-grandfather said. I definitely wouldn't remember it wrongly. He even worried for many years because of this matter. He was worried that if this karma wasn't good, it would very likely affect his descendants. But now it seems that this is not a bad karma. At least according to what you said, in the heart of Summer Solstice, you are more important than her life." Lin Sun was stunned and suddenly said, "Master Lu, since the eternal coffin was found in the ruins of fate, do you think the origin of Summer Solstice is related to the ruins of fate?" It may also be related to this coffin, Lu Boya said. Lin Sun was shocked and said in a daze, "How could the origin of summer solstice be related to a bronze coffin? It seems ridiculous. Even if the bronze coffin was a mysterious treasure, it must be a coffin. In the eyes of the world, this thing was the place where life was buried and the home where life could rest in peace. How could the origin of summer solstice be related to a coffin?" At this moment, Lin Sun couldn't help taking out the eternal coffin from the sea of consciousness. But the sleeping summer solstice didn't respond at all, nor did she feel anything because of this. "Even if you are eager to get the answer, you'd better not open the coffin now," Lu Boya said seriously. "As you can see, summer solstice is sleeping. As long as she is by your side, you will get the answer sooner or later, won't you?" Lin Sun's expression was uncertain. After a long time, he nodded slowly and said yes. He put away the eternal coffin, looked at the sleeping summer solstice, took a deep breath, and said, "No matter what her origin is, and whether she is the karma that my great-grandfather said, I will never let her be hurt in this life, and I will never let her leave me." His voice was extremely resolute and firm. No one understood how important and irreplaceable summer solstice was in his heart. Seeing this, Lu Boya couldn't help but have a subtle feeling in his heart. If Brother Tong Tian was here and saw the karma he worried about was like this, would he still be worried? "Let's go. Before we set off for Luo family, I'll take you to see someone first. With his guidance, he can give you a lot of help." Lu Boya walked out of the blessed enclave. This conversation also came to an end. But it also revealed many mysteries in Lin Sun's heart, and he learned a lot of inside stories and truths of those years. Miluo Cave, Yunshu Hall. Third-generation disciple Luo Xuanfu pays respect to Patriarch. Luo Xuanfu walked into the hall and bowed. Then, he saw Lin Sun sitting on one side of Lu Boya. His always calm state of mind suddenly surged. Lu Boya nodded and said, "Xuanfu, it seems that you have guessed why I called you here this time. Tomorrow morning, you and Lin Sun will leave Chaos Demon Sea and go to Luo family." Sure enough, Luo Xuanfu's eyes were bright, and his indifferent handsome face showed rare excitement. From the day he entered Miluo Cave, he had been waiting for this day for many years. Yes. Taking a deep breath, Luo Xuanfu solemnly accepted the order. Lu Boya said to Lin Sun, with Luo Xuanfu's guidance, after arriving at Luo family, he can help you further understand the situation of Luo family. Lin Sun nodded. He really needed someone who understood Luo family to lead the way, and Luo Xuanfu, as a descendant of the main bloodline of Luo family, was undoubtedly very suitable. In addition, you take this thing with you. Saying this, Lu Boya handed Lin Sun a sealed black jade box. After arriving at Luo family, if you encounter any danger, open this box. What's in it? Lin Sun asked. Lu Boya said with a smile, "Of course, it's a trump card prepared for you. You can explore it slowly in the future." Here comes the latest update. Chapter 2733. The next morning, Lin Sun and Luo Xianfu left the Mi Luo Grotto Heaven together under Lu Boya's escort. On the Chaos Demon Sea, thunder and storms raged. A treasure ship carried Lin Sun and Luo Xianfu at full speed. On the bow of the ship, Lin Sun was drinking while recalling his experience. Several months had passed since he arrived at the Chaos Demon Sea with Wanru of the Nine Leaves Chamber of Commerce. Many things had happened during this period of time. For example, he helped Wanru eliminate the traitor Jiao Taixing, killed Dao Lord Scarlet Demon, and successfully rescued Wanru's younger brother Bowen. Because of this, he obtained the Kuan ancestor's life bone, which was imprinted with the primordial secrets of immortality. When he arrived at South Sea Island and entered the Mi Luo Grotto Heaven, Lin Sun had gained a lot. It was also at this time that he realized that Master Lu had been preparing for this meeting all these years. Whether it was going to the magnetic wind belt to collect 100,000 kilograms of divine magnetic iron, or breaking the 9-layered forbidden array to awaken the eternal coffin. All of this was specially arranged by Master Lu for him. Collecting the divine magnetic iron and breaking the 9-layered forbidden array was so that he could condense the laws of time on the abyssal sword cauldron in the future. The eternal coffin awakened by his bloodline power was also prepared for him to embark on the immortal Tao. Especially the things he talked about with Master Lu, it also helped Lin Sun solve the doubts he had hidden in his heart for many years. But at the same time, Lin Sun was also a little worried. Master Lu's 5 blight tribulation was still there and would erupt every 100 years. If he couldn't resist it in the future, Lin Sun didn't dare to continue thinking about it. The journey out of the Chaos Demon Sea was smooth. Just 7 days later, Lin Sun and Luo Xianfu arrived at the Blood-Wind Divine Land. Then, the treasure ship carried the two towards the northwest. Ever since the Luo family was expelled from the 7th heaven, they had been entrenched in the 6th heaven, the Sky-Water Divine Land. This was a remote province. The Luo family was not the only immortal emperor clan entrenched there. There were also 2 other immortal emperor clans. The Luo family was also in a bad situation. According to Lin Sun's understanding, the 6th heaven had a total of 24 divine lands. Some top immortal emperor clans could even control 2 or 3 divine lands. As for the Pring family that Pring Tianxiang was in, they occupied the Azure Heaven Divine Prefecture, and their foundation and power were also very strong. In comparison, the Tianshui Divine Region was a remote place, and the Luo clan had to coexist with 2 other immortal emperor clans. It was obvious to what extent the Luo clan had fallen to. 1 month later, Tianshui Divine Continent, Red Willow City. The night was as dark as ink. Lin Sun stayed in an inn. Luo Xuanfu had already left in a hurry to inquire about the news. These few years, he had always stayed in chaotic devil seas overflowing Netland and did not understand the Luo family's recent situation. Although he was eager to go to the Luo family with Lin Sun for revenge, it was urgent to collect enough information. In the inn, Lin Sun was meditating and comprehending the natural primordial Tao marks on the Kuan ancestor's life bone. Every time there is a big event, there is calmness. Going to the Luo family for revenge was one of Lin's biggest obsessions since he started his cultivation, and it was even about to become a mental block. However, he also knew that this matter could not be rushed. He needed to find out more information so that he could complete this revenge operation in one fell swoop. He needed to remove the hatred that he had accumulated over the years from the depths of his heart. Vent it out. The Luo family's territory was located in the Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain, in the southeastern territory of the Tianshui Divine Region. It was one of the most famous mountains in the Tianshui Divine Region. If he set off from Red Willow City, he could reach the territory where the Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain was located within 3 days. In fact, Red Willow City was already one of the cities under the control of the Luo family. It was the territory of the Luo family. It was not until 2 days later that Luo Xuanfu returned in a hurry. "Uncle, this is the news I found out." Luo Xuanfu immediately handed a jade slip to Lin Sun. According to seniority, Lin Sun was 1 generation older than him, so it was reasonable to call him uncle. Lin Sun opened the jade slip and looked at it for a while. A few years ago, since the immortal Emperor Luo Yunshan was killed by Lin Sun in the 5th heaven, the Luo family was shocked. Losing an immortal emperor was equivalent to losing one of the pillars of the Luo family. It was a huge loss that no amount of Emperor Ancestor Realm cultivators could make up for. Under this heavy blow, the situation of the Luo family became more and more pessimistic. In the territory of the Heavenly Water Divine Land, the other 2 immortal emperor clans that coexisted with the Luo family had been moving frequently recently, encroaching on some of the territories that originally belonged to the Luo family. This made the Luo family shocked and angry, but they were helpless. What could they do when they were inferior? However, Lin Sun didn't care about this. He put down the jade slip and asked, "All these years, Pei Ru only had 2 old servants with her?" Luo Xuanfu nodded. "Since this bitch and Luo Chong became Taoist companions, the 2 old servants have been staying in the Luo family. Although they are servants, they have been enjoying the most thoughtful offerings of the Luo family over the years." His voice was full of hatred. As a descendant of the main bloodline, Luo Xuanfu had enough reason to hate Pei Ru and the people around her. What about Luo Yunhe? Has he been in seclusion all these years? Lin Sun asked again. Luo Xuanfu said, "This old bastard has been in seclusion for 3,000 years. It is said that he is comprehending a secret method. In recent years, even when the news of Luo Yunshan's death came back to the Luo family, he didn't come out of seclusion." Lin Sun thought for a while. "Do you think there is a way to lure Luo Yunhe out of the Luo family?" Luo Xuanfu shook his head. "It's too difficult. His status in the branch of the Luo family is extremely high. According to seniority, he is Luo Chang's uncle. Ordinary things can't alarm him at all." Speaking of this, he thought of something and his eyes lit up. "By the way, I think of one thing. If we can catch a person, maybe we can make Luo Yunhe restless and unable to eat and sleep in peace." "Who?" "Luo Feng." Luo Xuanfu's eyes were full of hatred. "He is the grandson of Luo Chong. In order to help him become an ancestor, Luo Chong almost used up all the resources accumulated by the main bloodline of the Luo family for countless years, which greatly affected the cultivation of the other main bloodlines. If that were the case, then it wouldn't be a big deal. But Luo Feng hates the people of the main bloodline. Over the years, who knows how many people of the main bloodline have been bullied and humiliated by Luo Feng? Most hateful of all, my 2 cousins were given as gifts to a silk pants from the Yao clan." Speaking of this, he gnashed his teeth and his eyes were red with hatred. The Yao family was one of the 2 immortal imperial clans that coexisted with the Luo family in the Divine Land. The other was the Ling family. In short, the Luo family, the Yao family and the Ling family were the 3 immortal imperial clans in the Divine Land. Lin Sun comforted Luo Xuanfu in a soft voice for a moment, and then asked, "If we catch Luo Feng, we can force Luo Yunhe out of the Luo family? It's very promising." Luo Xuanfu was not sure. "I only know that Luo Yunhe attaches great importance to Luo Feng. He has pinned the hope of the Luo family's re-emergence on Luo Feng. Even when Luo Feng became an ancestor, Luo Yunhe had been guarding Luo Feng with great efforts and energy." Lin Sun nodded and said, "If we can catch Luo Feng, he can indeed be a threat. Do you know where he is now?" Luo Xuanfu said quickly, "The Tao Discussion Conference at the Green Sky Lake." The Green Sky Lake. It was one of the few scenic spots and historic sites in the Divine Land. The lake was vast and magnificent. It was full of bright red lotus flowers all year round like a fairyland. Recently, the Green Sky Lake was extremely lively. Because the Tao Discussion Conference, which was held once in 1,000 years, began on the Green Sky Lake. Countless young geniuses from all over the Aqua Sky Divine Continent gathered together to spar and discuss the Tao on the Jade Sky Lake, and it attracted the attention of the entire Aqua Sky Divine Continent. It was indeed a grand event. Every 1,000 years, it would be held by the Luo, Yao and Ling imperial clans. Any young talent who participated in the grand event, as long as they performed well in the competition, was very likely to be selected by the 3 immortal imperial clans, thus realizing the change of carp leaping through the dragon gate. In any case, in the eyes of the cultivators of the Divine Land, the 3 immortal imperial clans were like the supreme sacred places. Being able to enter any of the clans to cultivate was enough to change their fate. Today's Tao Discussion Conference was hosted by the Luo family, and the standard was extremely high. Luo Feng, as the ancestor of the Divine Land, was personally present. In the past, it was generally presided by the Emperor ancestor level characters. Although the Luo family is in a precarious situation now, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. In my eyes, it is still an unattainable behemoth. If I can enter the Luo family to cultivate, I don't have to worry about not being able to rise in the future. As the ancestor of the divine land, Luo Feng will definitely shine in the future. After all, there are only a few legends like him in the entire sixth heaven. I just don't know how many lucky people will be chosen by the Luo family this time. The banks of the jade-green sky lake were densely packed with figures. It was impossible to see the end of them at a glance, and all sorts of discussions rose and fell one after another. In the center of the blue sky Great Lake, there was a huge dojo floating. At this moment, a Tao discussion conference was taking place on the dojo, and not far from the blue sky Great Lake, there was a row of seats piled up by clusters of auspicious clouds. Luo Feng was sitting on the central seat at this moment. He wore a crown that shot up into the sky and a bright yellow robe embroidered with pythons. He was handsome, his gaze was sharp like a sword, and a wisp of a faint cold arc hung on the corners of his mouth. He sat there casually like a supreme overlord. It's really boring. Luo Feng sighed softly. The Tao discussion conference had been going on for 7 days, and now it was time to select the top 100 participants. But in Luo Feng's opinion, there were only 7 or 8 people who were worthy of his attention. Such a Tao discussion conference made him feel quite bored. However, the only advantage is that he is the focus of attention in this Tao discussion conference, a legend that countless young talents can only look up to, not only because his surname is Luo, but also because he is the ancestor of the divine land. And in the countless years since the Luo family entered the sixth heaven, he is the only ancestor of the divine land. End of this chapter. Chapter 2734. Zhu Xian Ancestor. What a dazzling title! What a supreme realm! Every time Luo Feng thought that he had set foot in this realm, he couldn't help but feel that it was unreal. In the future, the Luo family will be under my control, and the Luo family will be different because of me. Luo Feng's heart was filled with lofty aspirations. Child, the patriarch sent a message asking you to return to the clan immediately after the Dharma discussion. An old servant came in a hurry. Why? Luo Feng frowned. He had already made an appointment with his friends to go to the restaurant for a banquet after the Dharma discussion. The old servant looked around and whispered, "It is said that the patriarch's wife has agreed to fight for a chance to enter the seventh heaven ancestor sect for you." Luo Feng was shocked. The ancestral court of Yuan sect. All of a sudden, his heart became hot and he said, "Did my grandmother really agree?" The old servant nodded with a smile. "Child, you are the hope of the Luo family's rise. Only by entering the ancestral court of Yuan sect can you show your strength." Luo Feng couldn't help but smile and nodded. "Well, when the Dharma discussion is over, I will go back immediately." The ancestral court of Yuan sect. It was the place that all the Zhu Xian ancestor dreamed of going to. If he could enter it, it would no longer be a delusion to enter the immortal realm. If I enter the immortal realm, the Luo family will be mine in the future. Luo Feng thought and couldn't wait to return to the clan now. On the bank of the blue sky lake, in the crowd, Luo Xuanfu looked into the distance and said, "Uncle, that is Luo Feng." Lin Sun stood on one side with his hands behind his back, looking at Luo Feng sitting in the central seat from a distance, and said, "I really didn't expect that it was possible to become a Zhu Xian ancestor by throwing cultivation resources." Luo Xuanfu sighed. "Although I hate him to the core, I have to admit that Luo Feng's talent and bone structure are indeed outstanding among his peers. That's why Luo Chong is willing to throw all the cultivation resources accumulated by the clan for many years on Luo Feng." Lin Sun nodded and said, "It's really not easy to become a Zhu Xian ancestor." With that, he took a step forward. Luo Xuanfu was startled, and then his expression changed. "Uncle is going to make a move in front of everyone?" But soon after, he noticed something different. There were so many practitioners nearby, but as Lin Sun walked in the void, no one noticed his existence at all. But in his eyes, Lin Sun's figure was so clear. What kind of magical technique is this? Luo Xuanfu was dumbfounded. The spars were still going on the Dao exchange grounds, and it drew the gazes of everyone. However, no one noticed that a tall figure was walking through the sky above the Dao exchange grounds. There were over a dozen Emperor Ancestor Realm cultivators sitting on the seats not far away from the Dao exchange ground, but none of them, including Luo Feng, noticed that a figure was approaching them through the air. This strange scene caused Luo Xuanfu to almost not dare to believe his eyes. What was more terrible was that he could see Lin Sun, but he couldn't capture Lin Sun's trace in his spiritual awareness. Just as Lin Sun arrived near the row of seats, Luo Feng, who was sitting high in the center, finally noticed something and suddenly looked up. Then, he saw Lin Sun, who was 3 meters away from him. His pupils shrank and he shouted, "Who are you? How dare you break into the place where Luo family is guarding?" His voice came out, but the people nearby didn't notice it at all. This made Luo Feng's face change. He suddenly stood up and spread his cultivation. Only now did he see clearly. Unknowingly, the nearby heaven and earth had changed as if the stars had moved. Everything had disappeared, and only darkness and nothingness remained. A formation. Realizing this, Luo Feng calmed down. "You have a good temperament." Not far away, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. "But your reaction is still a step slower. Compared with Feng Pejuan, Qi Lingyun, and Zhongli Xiao, you are much weaker." Being criticized like this, Luo Feng felt quite uncomfortable. He stared at Lin Sun for a while and suddenly realized something. "Are you Lin Sun?" A look of surprise appeared on his face. "I'll give you a chance to make a move. Let me see how strong the Luo clan's sovereign ancestor Zhu Ying really is." Lin Sun wasn't surprised that Luo Feng had guessed his identity. In this situation, if he still couldn't guess his identity, then he was extraordinarily stupid. "It's really you." Luo Feng's expression was uncertain. He couldn't calm down. This was the 6th heaven, and who knew how many immortal emperor clans were sharpening their swords to kill this guy. Even in this situation, this guy still dared to appear. It was also at this time that Luo Feng realized the seriousness of the problem, and said, "Lin Sun, my grandfather said that as long as you submit to the Luo family, the position of the Luo family's patriarch will be yours. Are you really not going to reconsider?" He was stalling for time. Even if he was full of confidence as the great ancestor of the great ancestor, when facing Lin Sun, he couldn't help but feel afraid. This was a terrifying and ruthless person who had survived the bloody slaughter in the god's relic and killed his way from the 1st heaven to the 5th heaven. These years, the entire eternal world had been spreading his fierce name and bloody achievements. Others might not know, but how could Luo Feng not know? Even the immortal Emperor Luo Yunshan of the Luo family was likely killed by Lin Sun. All of this made him suddenly lose confidence when facing Lin Sun. How could Lin Sun not see through Luo Feng's thoughts? He couldn't help but say indifferently, "Since you asked, then I'll tell you. It won't be long before I go to the Luo family to see your grandfather and your powerful grandmother. At the same time, I'll also settle the past grievances." Luo Feng squeezed out a smile. "Brother Lin, why do I feel like you're joking?" Lin Sun said, "Whether it's a joke or not, now are you going to follow me obediently, or struggle a little more?" Struggle a little more? In Lin Sun's eyes, was he so weak as the great ancestor of the great ancestor of the great ancestor? Luo Feng couldn't help but be angry. "Do you really think you can win?" Lin Sun said, "Then try." Boom. As soon as his voice fell, Luo Feng's body emitted a power far beyond that of an ordinary ancestor realm expert. Dazzling silver divine light flowed around him, making him look extraordinary. "Lin Sun, I'm not a person who will sit still and wait for death like you think." With a loud roar, Luo Feng attacked brazenly. From between his eyebrows, a purple sword swept out, like a divine rainbow, slashing through the air. The majestic and terrifying sword chi swept out, as if it wanted to destroy the world. Lin Sun flicked his finger. Clang! As if struck by lightning, the purple sword let out a violent collision and wailed, and was shaken and sent flying. Luo Feng was so upset that he almost coughed up blood, and his expression changed completely. Lin Sun said indifferently, "The power of this sword is far from enough to break this forbidden world. If you want to attract the attention of the people outside, I advise you to give up." Luo Feng's expression became more and more ugly. As Lin Sun said, the purpose of this sword was not Lin Sun, but to take this opportunity to break this forbidden world. As long as he could attract the attention of the outside world, it would be enough to get the help of the ancestor realm experts of the Luo family. I don't believe it. Luo Feng took a deep breath and suddenly waved his sleeves. A round jade plate as clear as ice and snow swept out, glowing in the void and surging with purple thunder. This was undoubtedly a secret treasure that borrowed the power of order. Open! Luo Feng exerted all his strength, and the round snow-white jade plate emitted a clear and melodious buzz. Countless purple orders evaporated and spread like thunder dragons, giving off a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. This attack was still not aimed at Lin Sun, but trying to destroy this forbidden world. However, before this treasure could exert its power, as Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grasped, the abyssal sword cauldron appeared in his palm, giving off an obscure aura of nirvana. In an instant, the purple thunder of order all over the sky seemed to be frozen and imprisoned, and then it was all swallowed up like thousands of streams returning to the sea. Bang! In the end, even the jade plate in Luo Feng's hand was shattered. This, all of a sudden, Luo Feng's heart sank to the bottom, and his body was cold. Although he had known that Lin Sun's combat power was formidable, when he fought with him, he realized that Lin Sun's combat power was far stronger than he had imagined. He couldn't be shaken at all. Facing him was enough to make any person in the same realm feel frustrated and powerless. What else do you have? Show me. In the distance, Lin Sun said casually. Luo Feng's face was livid, and he said, "Why don't you kill me directly?" Lin Sun said casually, "Without you, how could I lure Luo Yunhe out? In your eyes, I am just a bait?" Luo Feng was stunned and his face was stiff. He felt that his dignity was trampled to pieces at this moment, and an unprecedented sense of frustration and depression surged all over his body. "What do you think?" Lin Sun sighed. "So what? Your elder Luo Yunshan is an immortal, but he is also dead." Luo Feng trembled all over and his eyes were dim. Originally, he was full of ambition and hope. He planned to go to the seventh heaven to fight for an opportunity to enter the ancestral court of Yuan religion according to his grandmother's arrangement. But the appearance of Lin Sun completely shattered everything. On the same day, the news that Luo Feng mysteriously disappeared from the green sky lake spread like a storm, causing a sensation in Tianshui Divine Land. After all, Luo Feng was not only a member of the Luo family, but also an ancestor of Zhu Shui Emperor. Even in the sixth heaven, they are rare existences. But such a dazzling figure disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. This was undoubtedly incredible. Who did it? Who could hide from the eyes of countless cultivators and take Luo Feng away at the Taoism discussion meeting? The question was soon answered. Because on the same day that Luo Feng disappeared, a news came out. Luo Feng was kidnapped by the enemy of the Luo family. As soon as the news came out, the entire Tianshui Divine Land was shocked. Chapter 2735. Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. The place where the Luo family is located. When the news of Luo Feng's capture spread, the entire Luo family was shocked and in an uproar. Who is so bold to capture a member of the Luo family? Damn it! The person who dares to do this must have an extraordinary background. All kinds of discussions rang out in the Luo clan, causing everyone to be anxious. However, these voices were divided into two distinct attitudes. The people belonging to the Luo family branch were all angry, while the people of the main branch of the Luo family, although surprised, were gloating in their hearts. Over the years, Luo Feng has bullied the people of the main branch of the Luo family, causing great anger and resentment. In this turmoil, the atmosphere in the main hall of the Luo family was extremely oppressive and dignified. Since Luo Tongtian's disappearance, Luo Chong, who has been in charge of the Luo family, had a gloomy expression on his face, suppressing the anxiety and killing intent in his heart. His hair was as black as ink, and he was dressed in a purple robe. He was tall and thin, and he was sitting casually. In the main hall, a group of big shots of the Luo family branch gathered together, and each of them had an ugly expression on their faces. Although Luo Feng is a junior, he is the only Zhu Shui emperor ancestor cultivated by the Luo family over the years. His status was so important that it was far above these big shots like them. Yet now they'd suddenly been taken hostage during the Tao discussion, and this was undoubtedly like being struck by a rod, causing them to be taken by surprise. In this sixth heaven, the one who dares to do this must be an immortal emperor clan. I even suspect that the enemy is likely to be the Yao family or the Ling family. One person said angrily. Since the Yunshan ancestor suffered a disaster in the fifth heaven, in recent years, these two forces have frequently taken action, encroaching on the territory controlled by our Luo family. They don't put our Luo family in their eyes, so they are the most likely to attack Luo Feng. Everyone's heart was in turmoil. The Yao family, the Ling family, and the Luo family coexist in the heavenly water god continent, like three legs of a tripod, each occupying one side. Over the years, the three great immortal emperor clans have been peaceful on the surface, but in fact, they have secretly competed with each other countless times. In recent years, the Yao family and the Ling family have been too lazy to hide it anymore and directly put their struggle on the surface. Now, 20% of the territory controlled by the Luo clan had been annexed by these two clans. It wasn't that the Luo clan didn't retaliate, but it was very difficult for them to stop all of this. The reason for that was because the Luo family had suffered repeated casualties over the years, causing their power to weaken rapidly. Especially the death of Luo Yunshan a few years ago, it was simply a heavy blow that couldn't be any heavier. It caused the Luo clan to suffer a great loss, and the forces it possessed were far inferior to the Yao clan and Ling clan. Under such circumstances, he didn't have the confidence to completely fall out with these two great clans. Even if they lost some of their territories, they could only pinch their noses and endure it. But now, an extremely important clansman like Luo Feng had actually been abducted. This was simply equivalent to touching on their reverse scale, and they were unable to endure it any longer. We can't make any wild guesses. With the current strength of our Luo family, it's impossible for us to start an all-out war with the Yao family and the Ling family. In my opinion, it's better to find out what's going on first. Someone muttered. These words caused everyone present to feel suffocated in their hearts, and they felt extremely aggrieved. Thinking back to a long time ago, their Luo family was a behemoth standing in the seventh heaven, a top force that dared to wrestle with the top 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven. But now? It's really a situation where a tiger is being bullied by a dog. It's all that old slave Lu Boya's fault. If he hadn't taken Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingheng away that year, how could so many things have happened? Someone complained, his voice full of hatred. Sigh, in recent years, our Luo family has encountered too many ups and downs. Could it be that the heavens really don't bless our Luo family? If this continues, I'm afraid that we will repeat the same mistakes of the past. We will no longer be able to stand in the sixth heaven. A sigh sounded in the hall. They are all big figures of the Luo family. How could they not know how embarrassing and dangerous the situation of the Luo family is now? Enough! On the main seat, Luo Chong said coldly, suppressing all the voices in the hall, causing the hearts of everyone present to tremble. I just want to know now, who took Feng Er. I don't want to listen to your complaints. Luo Chang's eyes were like lightning, and his expression was cold and frightening. The hall was silent and everyone looked at each other. If they knew the exact news, how could they still be sitting here? Patriarch, there's news about young Master Luo Feng. Suddenly, an excited voice came from outside the hall. A guard rushed in and presented a jade slip. Under everyone's gaze, Luo Chong took a deep breath and probed the jade slip with his divine sense. After a while, boom! The jade slip exploded, and Luo Chang's face became ferocious. His brows were full of anger. This made everyone realize that the situation was not good. Who sent this jade slip? Luo Chong looked coldly at the guard who delivered the letter. The guard trembled and said in a trembling voice, reporting to Patriarch, it was an errand vendor in 100 Spirit City. I specially inquired about it. This vendor said that a stranger gave him the jade slip and gave him 10,000 eternal void source crystals as an errand fee. Luo Chong continued to ask, where is the vendor now? The guard answered quickly, I also noticed that something was wrong, and I have already detained the vendor. He is currently in our clan. Luo Chang's expression softened. He nodded and said, you did well. Bring the vendor here. The guard obeyed and left. Patriarch, is there something wrong with the jade slip? Someone could not help but ask. Luo Chong said expressionlessly, there's nothing wrong with the jade slip. The problem is who handed the jade slip to the vendor. If we can find out the vendor's background, we might be able to find out who the enemy who captured Feng Er is. As he spoke, the guard had already brought the vendor into the hall. This was a capable and vigilant male. His cultivation was quite unbearable, not worth mentioning. Luo Chong did not intend to ask any questions and said directly, I want to see who gave you the jade slip from your spiritual soul. What do you think? The man was clearly panicking. He prostrated on the ground and nodded cooperatively. As long as I can help all of you, it will be my honor. This was called the desire to live. Luo Chong nodded and released his divine sense, entering the man's spiritual soul. Not long later, Luo Chong saw a scene. On the bustling street, a man found a peddler. After negotiating the price, he handed a jade slip to the peddler. Luo Chong tried to see the man's appearance clearly, but no matter how he tried, he could not. It was like looking at flowers in a fog. What was even more strange was that the man seemed to be prepared. He suddenly turned his head and looked at the vendor. His lips moved slightly and he said silently, You only have 10 days. You only have 10 days. Remember. Luo Chang's face instantly darkened. This was not said for the vendor to hear, but specifically for him to hear. Obviously, the other party had expected that he would search his soul. Retracting his divine sense, Luo Chong waved his hand. Take this person away. The guards hurriedly dragged the peddler, who was already scared like a dead dog, out of the main hall. All the people present looked at Luo Chong again. Patriarch, is the situation bad? Someone asked. Luo Chong was silent for a moment, then said. The other party said that he wants us to bring 10 immortal Dao soldiers and the Wuji Divine Book to the sky-splitting Thunder Sea within 10 days. Otherwise, he will kill Luo Feng. The great figures present instantly exploded into an uproar. All of them were furious and stamped with rage. 10 immortal Dao soldiers? What does the other party think these treasures are? Scrap metal? It's simply insane. Someone was furious. Immortal Dao soldiers are refined from all kinds of immortal materials. They are extremely rare and precious. Generally speaking, only immortal characters can control and refine them, and their number is extremely small. In the entire 6th heaven, the number of immortal Dao soldiers owned by each immortal emperor family is extremely limited. The other party asked for so many immortal Dao soldiers. If they agree, it is equivalent to taking out all the remaining treasures of the Luo family. The Wuji Divine Book is a supreme treasure left by ancestor Tongtian. It contains endless mysteries and is the most precious treasure of our Luo family. The other party made such a request. It's indeed a wolf's ambition. Others also spoke one after another, their faces extremely gloomy. We still have to save people, but the treasures absolutely can't be given. Someone said murderously. Since the other party agreed to meet in the sky-splitting Thunder Sea, this gives us a chance. Let's directly kill them. Someone also suggested. We still need to prepare the treasures. In case the situation goes wrong, we can leave some room for buffer. Luo Chong nodded. He had already calmed down. The other party dared to make such a request. They must have been prepared for a long time. Feng is the ancestor of the Jüing Emperor, but she was silently captured during the Tao discussion. It can be inferred that the person who did this must be an immortal. This also means that if we go to the sky-splitting Thunder Sea, we need at least an immortal to personally lead the team. At this point, he sighed and said, "Now, Ancestor Yunhe is in seclusion, and as the Patriarch, I can't act rashly. This is a bit tricky." Everyone couldn't help but frown, realizing the seriousness of the problem. In the end, the current Luo family is far from what it used to be. Luo Yunshan's death made the situation of the Luo family even worse. "If you give me the Wuji Divine Book now, I'll help you settle this small matter." Suddenly, a hoarse and magnetic voice rang out. Outside the hall, a graceful and slender figure walked in gracefully. Her jet-black hair was coiled into a bun, revealing a dignified and gorgeous face that didn't lose its charm. Her neck was snow-white, her skin tender, and her dark blue dress was unable to conceal her proud figure. Every single move she made, every single frown, and every single smile she made carried an innate and noble aura. All of a sudden, all the important figures stood up in unison with solemn expressions. Even Luo Chong, who was sitting on the main seat, was startled. Then, he stood up, squeezed out a smile, and stepped forward to welcome her. "Madam, why are you here?" Chapter 2736. It was Pei Ru. She was a mysterious woman who possessed an unimaginable might. Towards this woman, the big shots of the Luo family were both in awe and in conflict. Without her, Luo Chong wouldn't have been able to become the patriarch of the Luo family, and they wouldn't have been able to control the core power of the Luo family. But she hadn't fulfilled any of the promises she made back then. Helping the Luo family rise again, and returning to the seventh heaven, no longer counted. On the contrary, in the past countless years, the Luo family had spent countless clan resources to support her and the two old servants around her. But due to the power of this woman, they could only pinch their noses and accept it. "If I didn't come, who would help you solve these small things?" Pei Ru said as she came to the main seat. Seeing that she was about to sit in her seat, Luo Chong's eyes couldn't help but change slightly. But fortunately, Pei Ru only sat on the side of the main seat. "It would be great if you could help me." Luo Chong smiled. He and the other big shots of the Luo family looked at each other. They both loved and hated this woman. "I can help, but you must give the Wuji Divine Book to me," Pei Ru said, "but don't worry, I will only take it to study and return it to you later." Everyone looked at each other, feeling a burst of resistance and disgust in their hearts. Over the years, Pei Ru had made similar requests more than once. At first, it was for the heaven accessing place, the Sword of Fate and the Eternal Coffin. Luo Chong agreed because these three treasures were not in his hands, and his promise was just an empty promise. But in recent years, Pei Ru began to have ideas about the Blade of Light and Shadow and the Wuji Divine Book. Luo Chong naturally wouldn't agree. He knew very well that this was the reason why his wife became his cultivation companion. But at the same time, he also needed to use the power she had. The relationship between the two was to take what they needed. Under such circumstances, Luo Chong would never let the other party get what she wanted. Otherwise, once the other party succeeded, Their relationship of taking what they needed was doomed to no longer exist. Without value, how could Pei Ru still stay in the Luo family? However, it was very obvious that Pei Ru was not satisfied. She had made the same request again when she saw that Luo Feng was in danger. Luo Chong let out a long sigh. Madam, all these years, the limitless God book has been sealed in the ancestral origin God stone of our Luo family. You know this as well. Even if I wanted to lend it to you, I had no choice. Pei Ru revealed a wisp of faint ridicule as she said, Are you trying to say that I need the Grand Devourer bloodline to activate the energy of order on the ancestral root stone? Luo Chong seemed as if he didn't hear the ridicule in Chen Shi's words, and he nodded seriously. Exactly. Then how do you explain the blade of light and shadow? Didn't you say earlier that this treasure was sealed within an ancestral divine stone? Why was it taken away by Luo Yunshan a few years ago? Pei Ru spoke coldly. Luo Chong was just about to say something when an indifferent voice rang out. I'll settle the matter of saving Feng. Outside the hall, a skinny and imposing figure had appeared at an unknown time. He had a head full of silver hair and his eyes were as cold as knives. Yunhe ancestor. The great figures present were all stirred restlessly, revealing looks of joy. It was Luo Yunhe who had been in seclusion for thousands of years. Pei Ru frowned when she saw him appear, and she immediately stood up and said with an expressionless face, All right, then I'll be troubling you. After speaking, she left directly. Luo Chong and the others didn't meet her until she disappeared from the hall. At the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief. Ancestor, I never expected that this matter would alarm you. Luo Chong walked forward and welcomed Luo Yunhe into the hall with a complicated expression. If I didn't come, it would have been difficult to get rid of your wife. Luo Yunhe's voice was cold. Luo Chong, the current situation of the Luo family is already precarious. Now that you've grasped the energy of order of the clan, it's sufficient to solve some of the hidden dangers around you. If you still hold on to other fantasies, then the Luo family, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for it to gain a foothold in the sixth heaven. Solve the hidden dangers around me. Luo Chong's heart shook. How could he not know who Luo Yunhe was talking about? After a moment of silence, he said, I'll consider it carefully. Luo Yunhe nodded and said, It's fine to ask a tiger for its skin or to take what we need. The situation has already reached this point, it's time to end it. After a pause, he continued, In the future, no matter how weak our Luo family is, as long as we can cultivate Feng into an immortal figure, the Luo family will rise again in the future. That sonorous voice resounded throughout the hall. On the same day, Luo Yunhe led the 3 Emperor Ancestor Realm Elders of the Luo family and a group of Ancestor Realm Elders and left Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. The sky-splitting Thunder Sea. A ferocious sea covered by thunderstorms all year round. The surging thunder power could easily tear the sky apart. It was extremely terrifying. The name Sky-Splitting Thunder Sea came from this. On a black island, thunder and lightning intertwined, and there was no vegetation. Luo Xuanfu's expression was indifferent as usual, but at this time, he was a little nervous, glancing at the distance from time to time. Next to him, Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged and reading an ancient book, said casually, Are you worried that I'm not their opponent? Luo Xuanfu shook his head. I'm just thinking that, if the power of the branch of the Luo family really dares to keep the appointment, they will not only send Luo Yunhe. Lin Sun smiled and said without raising his head, When the time comes, you can just hide. The ancient book in his hand was given by Master Lu, which recorded the mystery of spiritual tattoos, which inspired him when he studied it. Seeing him so calm, Luo Xuanfu couldn't help asking, Uncle, aren't you nervous at all? Lin Sun smiled. Why should I be nervous? Up until this point, he'd experienced countless battles of all sizes, so how could he possibly be nervous because of an upcoming battle? Luo Xuanfu was speechless for a moment. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly raised his head, looked into the distance, put away the ancient book in his hand, and stood up, saying, "A good show is about to begin. Are you going to hide or watch the fun?" Luo Xuanfu's body stiffened. Looking into the distance, he saw thunder and lightning surging, and the sea rolling. Vaguely, he could see many divine rainbows breaking through the sky and rushing here from a very far distance. "I want to stay and fight with you, uncle." Taking a deep breath, Luo Xuanfu said firmly, "You'd better stay and watch the fun." Lin Sun smiled and shook his head. With a wave of his hand, Luo Xuanfu was wrapped by an invisible force and came to a formation behind the island. Then, Lin Sun turned around and looked into the distance. His clothes fluttered, and his deep eyes gradually became cold and indifferent. Did they finally come? Boom! In the distance, thunder roared and lightning flashed. Led by Luo Yunhe, a group of strong practitioners came from the void. The power released from their bodies shattered the thunder in the sky. Luo Xuanfu, who was hiding in the formation, held his breath. An immortal figure. 19 emperors. Such a lineup was simply capable of causing any cultivator to feel despair. It could also be seen how much the branch of Luo family valued Luo Feng. However, when they saw Lin Sun standing alone on the island, Luo Yunhe and others couldn't help but be stunned. Was he alone? "Everyone, I've been waiting for you for a long time." Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and said calmly, his voice resounding in the sky. "You are Lin Sun." Someone shouted, and his face suddenly changed. Claiming to be Lin Sun alone, there could only be one possibility. Luo Yunshan's face also sank, revealing a look of disbelief. This little thing really dared to come to the sixth heaven? Before, they all thought that it was a big force that captured Luo Feng this time, or even the Yao family or the Ling family. But they never thought that it was Lin Sun. "Lin Sun, do you know what you are doing?" Luo Yunshan calmed down. "Of course I know." Lin Sun smiled slightly. "If you still want to say some useless nonsense, you can't save Luo Feng at all." Luo Yunshan's face was ugly and gloomy. "Are you really going to be stubborn and fight against the Luo family to the end?" Lin Sun said, "If I remember correctly, you are just a branch of the Luo family. You can't represent the whole Luo family, right?" Presumptuous. According to the seniority, Ancestor Yunshan and your maternal great-grandfather are the same generation. How dare you say such rebellious words? It's simply heartless. Lin Sun, this is the sixth heaven. Aren't you worried about getting into trouble by being so bold? The powerhouses of the Luo family scolded him. Lin Sun frowned and said, "You talk too much nonsense. Let me ask you again, do you want to save Luo Feng or not?" Luo Yunshan's words made the expressions of those people change. They looked at Luo Yunshan. As long as the latter gave the order, they would immediately take action. "My elder brother Luo Yunshan was really killed by you?" Luo Yunhe asked after a moment of silence. Lin Sun said, "Yes." Luo Yunhe asked again, "The blade of light and shadow is also in your hands?" "Yes." Lin Sun's answer was light and breezy, but the expressions of the powerhouses of the Luo family had changed. It seemed that at this time, they realized that although Lin Sun was only one person, although he was only the ancestor of the Juetian emperor, his past achievements were enough to make anyone tremble with fear. Luo Yunhe's face also became livid and cold. "It seems that you are well prepared to kidnap Luo Feng this time, but obviously, you don't have the courage to rush into the Luo family at the first moment. Otherwise, why would you go through so much trouble?" After a pause, he stared at Lin Sun with frightening eyes. "This only proves that you are not sure that you can fight against the whole Luo family, right?" Everyone looked at Lin Sun with a thought. But Lin Sun said with a smile, "If there were other ways to destroy the branch of the Luo family, why would I do it recklessly? I'm alone. Who would be stupid enough to start a fight without understanding the situation? Look at you. How dare you come here alone without knowing who the enemy is?" Luo Yunhe snorted. "I only know that you don't have the courage to take revenge on the Luo family after all. You can only do some despicable things like coercing hostages. If your great-grandfather were alive, he would be ashamed of you. Lin Sun said with a smile, if you keep delaying like this, I will destroy Luo Feng's cultivation now. At that time, the one you want to save will be a waste. His voice was casual and his face was full of smiles, but the meaning in his words was chilling. P.S. More tonight. Chapter 27:37. Luo Yunhe realized that he couldn't delay any longer. He stared at Lin Sun and said, the Book of Infinity is sealed in the ancestral Source Stone. Only the Devourer of the Abyss can take it out. If you want it, you can go to Luo family with me. I believe you can easily take it out with your talent. After a pause, he continued, as for the 10 immortal Taoist weapons, I can give you 2 first. As long as you let Luo Feng go, I will give you the other 8. Lin Sun laughed. Are you still bargaining at a time like this? Or do you really think I don't know that the Book of Infinity is in Luo Chang's hands? The ancestral Source Stone is nothing more than a lie to deceive Pei Ru. Luo Yunhe frowned and was quite surprised. Then he said coldly, did those bastards from the main branch of Luo family tell you that? Lin Sun sighed, I see that you don't intend to exchange the treasures for Luo Feng's life this time. With that, he waved his sleeve and Luo Feng's figure appeared. When he saw Luo Yunhe and the others in the distance, Luo Feng shouted excitedly, Ancestor, help me! Feng! Luo Yunhe was also excited. But the next moment, his face froze. Under his eyes, Lin Sun patted Luo Feng's shoulder with one hand, and Luo Feng's cultivation suddenly burst like a bubble. In a flash, Luo Feng had become a disabled man. This was like a bolt of lightning. Luo Yunhe's eyes widened as his body trembled in anger. The overmatches of Luo family were also dumbfounded. No one had expected that Lin Sun would cripple Luo Feng so decisively. Over the years, the branch of Luo family had spent a lot of resources on Luo Feng and tried every means to cultivate him into the ancestor of Zhu Xiong. In the eyes of others, Luo Feng was the hope of their branch to rise again. But now, Lin Sun's palm was equivalent to killing all the hope of the branch of Luo family. Why did he do this? How dare he do this? Didn't he know that crippling Luo Feng would only anger the Luo family and kill him? This was no different from killing a hostage before a deal. It was too unexpected and completely unexpected. To be honest, I never expected you to hand over those treasures. At most, Luo Feng is just a bait. She just wants to lure you here. Me. Yes. Kill. Got it. You. At this moment, Luo Yunhe was angered to the point his eyes were bloodshot while his long hair stood on end, and his entire body emanated a terrifying and violent eternal might that blotted out the sky. He seemed like a completely infuriated beast. Amidst the earth-shattering roar, he waved his palm and a beam of immortal sword energy slashed down. Boom! The world was overturned, the seawater evaporated, and even the lightning in the sky was crushed into powder. Brilliant sword energy was filled with immortal light, illuminating this ocean. This was undying might, a terrifying might that wished to destroy the world from rage. Even ancestor Zhu Shui wouldn't be able to withstand it, much less an ordinary ancestor. However, an inconceivable scene appeared. As the sword descended, only a heaven-shaking rumble resounded. Countless dense Dao patterns surged out like tidewater, and dense symbols flickered. Luo Yunhe's sword, which was filled with rage, disintegrated and dissipated without a sound. Everyone's pupils constricted and their hearts trembled. What kind of formation was this? How could it withstand the attack of an immortal? Luo Yunhe couldn't care less about this anymore. Luo Feng's cultivation was crippled, which was equivalent to cutting out his flesh. Kill! He roared angrily. His hair and beard fluttered in the wind, and his entire body was covered by terrifying immortal lightning. He was like a berserk god of thunder as he tore the sky apart and charged towards Lin Sun. Whatever restriction or grand formation it was, all of it collapsed like a piece of paper under his charge, and it caused a rain of light to spray into the surroundings. Lin Sun stood still on the spot. It was as if he was completely stunned by Luo Yunhe's power. Luo Xianfu, who saw this scene from afar, was so shocked that his heart was in his throat. "Uncle." As for the Luo clan's powerhouses, they sneered. So what if it was a formation? In front of an angry immortal, nothing was worth mentioning. However, no one would underestimate Lin Sun. Lin Sun's past achievements made them realize that it was impossible for Lin Sun to be scared out of his wits. It was unlikely that they could kill him with one blow. However, it was foreseeable that Lin Sun would not be able to hold on for long under the attack of the furious Luo Yunhe unless he used some extraordinary trump card. However, what was his trump card? The forbidden magic? Some kind of forbidden secret treasure? Or was it something else he could rely on? The powerhouses of the Luo clan began to speculate in their hearts. At this moment, someone's pupils shrank and he cried out involuntarily, "This!" The others were horrified, and their faces turned pale with fright. A mysterious door made of the mysteries of time and space appeared in front of Lin Sun. Inside the door was a boundless black abyss, as if it led to the depths of hell. Just by looking at it, people would feel unspeakably cold and frightened. When Luo Yunhe's figure broke through the layers of formation and was only 3 meters away from Lin Sun, the door appeared silently. Luo Yunhe's reaction was extremely decisive. He tried to dodge at the first moment, but he staggered and approached the door uncontrollably. It felt as if an invisible hand was fiercely grabbing onto him and trying to drag him into that door. Luo Yunhe struggled crazily and his immortal light burst out like a landslide and a tsunami, but it was to no avail. It all happened within a breath of time. His whole body was dragged into the door and disappeared without a trace. He didn't even have time to make a sound. Everyone was shocked by this strange scene, and it was as if they were struck by lightning as they stood there in a daze. An immortal was gone just like that? This was enough to drive anyone crazy. It was more than incredible, it was completely horrifying. Even though they were the emperor ancestors and had seen all kinds of horrible things in the world, when these powerhouses of the Luo clan saw this scene, they were still shocked to the core. How could this be? Luo Xuanfu, who had seen this scene in the distance, couldn't help but be stunned. That was, of course, the door of exile. When Lin Sun fought against Luo Yunshan, he had used this forbidden skill at the 3rd stage, but he lacked experience at that time and didn't seize the best time to use it. So in the end, Lin Sun had to release the fire of order to kill Luo Yunshan. But this time, he seemed to be much more skilled. Luo Yunhe, who was furious, took the initiative to rush to Lin Sun. Lin Sun would not miss such a great opportunity. In fact, Lin Sun destroyed Luo Feng's cultivation in order to irritate Luo Yunhe and create a favorable opportunity to use the door of exile. Obviously, he succeeded. After fierce fighting and killing, Luo Yunhe, an old monster who had stepped into the immortal realm, was directly banished to the abyss of nothingness, and the price he paid was about 70% of his own strength. But it was enough to deal with the rest of the ancestor realm opponents. Light and shadow flashed, and the door of exile disappeared silently. The powerhouses of the Luo family in the distance were already in a cold sweat. One by one, they realized that the situation was not good. When they looked at Lin Sun again, there was uncontrollable fear on their faces. Is this the 3rd stage of the devouring abyss? Someone said in a trembling voice. In the past, when the Lord of Tongtian awakened the 3rd stage of the Blade of Time, no one in the 7th heaven dared to call himself the Lord of Time. Now, although what Lin Sun used was not the Blade of Time, the strange door was obviously the forbidden power of the devouring abyss. Lin Sun took a deep breath and smiled. Want to know? As long as you can live, I will tell you. With that, his figure disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in front of the Luo family powerhouses, waved his sleeve, and the abyssal sword cauldron swept out with an earth-shattering roar. Boom! The battle broke out, and the void collapsed under the pressure of the terrible divine light. The turbulence was turbulent, and from time to time, blood splashed, screams came out, and treasures burst into pieces in the eyes of Luo Xuanfu in the distance. Lin Sun at this moment was like a god, sweeping through the battlefield and tearing the Emperor Ancestor realm like tearing a painting. It was so easy, so calm, so fierce and swift. Some people tried to escape by teleporting, but in the nearby sea area, Lin Sun had already set up layers of Taoist forbidden arrays. Even if many of them were destroyed by Luo Yunhe before, it was more than enough to trap these Ancestor realm powerhouses. Blood continued to spill. Screams sounded one after another. It was a bloody and cold scene of slaughter. Luo Xuanfu dared to swear that he was destined to never forget the scenes he saw today in his life. It was too shocking. After a while, this one-sided bloody battle came to an end. A total of 19 Emperor Ancestor realm powerhouses from the branches of the Luo family were killed on the spot. No one survived. The void was dyed a dazzling red. At this point, the force led by Luo Yunhe was completely annihilated. Luo Xuanfu didn't dare to imagine how Luo Chong and the other branches of the Luo family would feel when such grievous news reached the Luo family. Would they be furious or terrified? What are you standing there for? Time to take inventory of the battlefield. In the distance, Lin Sun turned around and landed on the island. He grabbed a handful of spirit pills and medicines and stuffed them into his mouth. It wasn't difficult to kill those Emperor Ancestors, but it was difficult to use the Door of Exile, and it consumed too much of his energy. Luo Xuanfu hurried over from afar, and he only looked at Lin Sun, who was recovering his strength after he finished cleaning up the spoils. At this moment, his face couldn't help but be suffused with reverence. This uncle of his was simply a god. In the past, he had heard all sorts of rumors about Lin Sun, but they were all rumors after all, and it was far less shocking and impactful than seeing it with his own eyes. In fact, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have been able to imagine how an Emperor Ancestor Zhu Shui could defeat an immortal in the blink of an eye. This had completely subverted his imagination and understanding. After this defeat, do you think the Luo family's branch will still send people here? Lin Sun suddenly asked from afar. P.S. I'm sending more updates. Chapter 2738. Hearing Lin Sun's question, Luo Xuanfu was obviously stunned. He pondered in silence for a long time and then said hesitantly, "When Luo Yunhe came, he obviously didn't guess that it was you who took Luo Feng hostage. In my opinion, those people from the branch of Luo family may think that it was a big force that took action." Lin Sun praised, "Go on." Luo Xuanfu cheered up and said, "In this way, even if they know that Luo Yunhe's army was wiped out, those people from the branch of Luo family will not suspect you. On the contrary, they will panic and worry that it's a big force's revenge. If I were Luo Chong, no matter how angry I am, I would not send people to the sky-cracking Thunder Sea. Instead, I would immediately order people to guard Dragon's Pine Mountain." Lin Sun said, "Since it's meaningless to wait here, what do you think we should do next?" Luo Xuanfu knew that his uncle was testing him. He took a deep breath and said after a long silence, "Take the initiative to attack." "Take the initiative to attack?" "Yes, but not directly to Dragon's Pine Mountain." Luo Xuanfu calmly analyzed, "Let's go to the territory controlled by Luo family and arrest the people in charge of the branch of Luo family one by one." Lin Sun asked with interest, "Why arrest instead of killing?" "Uncle, the elders from the main branch of the Luo family are still imprisoned in the Fei Ting Mountain. Even if we kill our way over now, once Luo Chong and the elders from the Luo family become a threat, you will definitely hold back." Luo Xuanfu said, "But if we can catch more hostages, we won't be afraid of their threat. It's nothing more than exchanging hostages." Lin Sun nodded, "Your analysis is good, but you have overlooked one thing." Luo Xuanfu was stunned and said, "Please give me some advice." The whole branch of Luo family is not a big threat. Even if Luo Chong can control the 8th level power of the Earth rank, he is not a threat to me. As Lin Sun said this, Luo Xuanfu understood and said, I have overlooked the bitch Pei Ru. Lin Sun said with a smile, yes, in my opinion, this woman who is suspected to be from the Wang family is the biggest threat in this action. The method you mentioned earlier isn't bad. However, a woman like Pei Ru definitely wouldn't care about the lives of the members of the Luo clan's branch bloodline. Instead, for the sake of dealing with me, she would fearlessly threaten the lives of the elders of the Luo clan's main bloodline. Speaking of this, Lin Sun frowned. More importantly, I don't know whether my uncle and grandfather have been controlled by the branch of the Luo family. Previously with Luo Qing? When they met, she was most worried about her brother, Luo Qingheng, and father, Luo Xiao. For Lin Sun, they were naturally the most important. Luo Xuanfu suddenly felt that the matter had become tricky, and he said, how about I go and inquire about the news again? Lin Sun shook his head. I'm afraid even you can't get access to such core secrets. Luo Xianfu suddenly fell silent. There was nothing he could do in this situation. Lin Sun suddenly realized something. He patted his forehead and said with a smile, how could I forget this guy? Saying this, he got up and walked towards Luo Feng in the distance. After his cultivation was abolished, Luo Feng looked haggard, as if he had aged countless years all of a sudden. He fainted on the ground, unconscious. Luo Xuanfu's eyes lit up. Yes, Luo Feng is the core figure of the branch of the Luo family. She must know some inside information. Not far away, Lin Sun had already started to take action. He released his spiritual awareness and began to search the soul. After a while, Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and said, Master Lu is right. My uncle and grandfather were indeed caught by Luo Chong, but they were not suppressed in the Flying Thunder Mountain. Instead, they were imprisoned in a place called the Emerald Cloud Cave. Luo Xuanfu said in surprise, that's the place where Pei Ru lives. Over the years, even when she is not there, the 2 old servants have been guarding nearby. Lin Sun's face suddenly became gloomy. It was obvious that Luo Qingheng had made such an arrangement. In other words, Pei Ru clearly knew that as long as she controlled the lives of Luo Qingheng and Luo Xiao, she could exchange them for the heaven accessing place, the Sword of Fate and other treasures as long as he or his mother appeared. She really doesn't give up. Lin Sun's eyes were cold. Uncle, if you sneak into the Luo family, once your trace is exposed, it will be bad, Luo Xuanfu said worriedly. Lin Sun said, but this is the only way. Don't worry, I won't ignore the lives of the elders of the main branch of the Luo family. Luo Xuanfu smiled bitterly, but in this way it will be more troublesome. Uncle, you are alone. Even if you want to save everyone, I'm afraid you can't split into 2. Can't split into 2? Lin Sun's eyes flashed with a strange luster. That's not necessarily true. Saying this, he stood up. Let's go to the Luo family at once. Luo Xuanfu couldn't help asking, Uncle, have you really thought it through? Lin Sun said, being overcautious and hesitant won't solve the problem. What about him? Luo Xuanfu pointed to Luo Feng not far away. Didn't you say that this boy has done a lot of heartless things to the main branch of the Luo family over the years? Then you can deal with him, Lin Sun said casually. Luo Xuanfu raised his hand and blasted Luo Feng's body into ashes and dissipated. Lin Sun was stunned. Isn't it too easy to kill him? Luo Xuanfu shook his head and said, he's just a useless man. Torturing him won't bring me any good mood. Lin Sun nodded. This is the difference between you and him. Good. 2 days later. Gale City. This was the city closest to Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. It was large in scale, prosperous. Because it was adjacent to the territory of the Luo family, very few people dared to make trouble in the city for fear of accidentally provoking the Luo family. Luo business. Luo Xuanzhen had just harvested a batch of cultivation materials and planned to return to Dragon's Pine Mountain before night fell. "How dare you embezzle the materials secretly? I'll beat you!" The shopkeeper of the business was an elder of the branch of the Luo family. Seeing Luo Xuanzhen was about to leave, he couldn't help but warn him in a cold voice. Luo Xuanzhen was silent for a moment, then he turned and left. Over the years, he was like a servant, running errands in the Luo business. He was called by the people of the Luo family's branch, and they would beat and scold him whenever they were dissatisfied. In the beginning, he was angry and humiliated, but gradually, he became numb to it. The main branch of the Luo family was declining. He was not the only one who was being oppressed and ordered around. Everyone was suffering. "I just don't know where Luo Xuanfu is now. If he's still alive, don't come back. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll lose my life." Luo Xuanzhen's thoughts drifted on the road. He and Luo Xuanfu were brothers. A long time ago, they had shown amazing talent and potential. Unfortunately, the more outstanding they were, the more they were suppressed and envied by the people of the branch. In the end, Luo Xuanfu fled the Luo family, while Luo Xuanzhen was sent to the Luo business to do odd jobs. He could only swallow the humiliation. "Brother!" Suddenly, a voice sounded in his ear. Luo Xuanzhen stiffened as if he couldn't believe it. After a while, he slowly turned his head and saw a familiar figure. His heart tightened, not out of surprise, but out of worry. He looked around quickly and transmitted his voice. "Xuanfu, do you want to die?" Not far away, a smile appeared on Luo Xuanfu's stiff face. He strode forward and gave his brother, who had worried him for many years, a bear hug. He shouted again, "Brother!" His eyes were red. Without Luo Xuanzhen's help, it was impossible for him to escape from the Luo family so smoothly. But because of this, Luo Xuanzhen was implicated. Luo Xuanzhen knew that his brother must have suffered a lot of suppression and humiliation over the years. Luo Xuanzhen was stunned for a moment. He patted Luo Xuanfu on the back and sighed, "You shouldn't have come back. Brother, it's different now." Luo Xuanfu took a deep breath, suppressed his inner excitement, and said, "Or it won't be long before our Luo family will completely change." His eyes were firm. Luo Xuanzhen was stunned for a moment. Completely change? Then, he saw Lin Sun walking towards him from afar. The night was as dark as ink. Luo Xuanzhen left Gale City alone and rushed towards Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. At that moment, he was extremely excited, but there was also an indescribable nervousness and apprehension in his heart. From Luo Xuanfu, he learned about Lin Sun's background and what Luo Xuanfu was going to do when he returned. In the beginning, he also found it hard to believe. He even thought that Lin Sun and his younger brother had gone mad. But gradually, as he learned more and more things, he learned that Luo Yunhe and the other great figures of the Luo family's branch had been killed by Lin Sun. Only then did he finally dare to believe that it was true. His uncle, who was like a legend in the eternal true world in recent years, was going to wage war against the Luo family's branch. No matter how great the hope is, if I don't take action, can the Luo family's current situation change? As if recalling his uncle's calm and indifferent words, Luo Xuanzhen murmured in his heart. Yes, if I don't take action, nothing can be changed. In the distance, under the pitch-black veil of night, an expanse of divine mountains that rose and fell continuously was bathed beneath the dazzling and illusory radiance of the stars. Divine radiance seethed there while auspicious rays of light flowed about, and even though it was deep in the night, it still seemed so divine and otherworldly. That was Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. It was the place where the Luo family was entrenched. Ever since they were expelled from the seventh heaven, the Luo family had been entrenched there for countless years. Not only did the Luo family's situation not improve, but it also became more and more unbearable. No one knew how long the Luo family could last in the sixth heaven, but everyone knew that as long as this situation continued, the Luo family, might suffer the same fate of being expelled at any time. He looked at Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain from afar. At this moment, Luo Xuanzhen took a deep breath and completely calmed down. He quietly clenched his fists. The humiliation and torture he had suffered in the past must be changed tonight. Without any hesitation, he flew into the air and flew towards Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain. Chapter 2739. Dragon's Pine Mountain. It was easy for the Luo family members to enter and exit the mountain. But for outsiders, Dragon's Pine Mountain was like a tiger's den. Not only was it covered in layers of terrifying restrictive spells, but it was also shrouded in the power of order. Under such circumstances, even immortal figures would find it extremely difficult to sneak in. Even if someone from the Luo family was leading the way, they would still be sensed by the power of order. Therefore, the moment Luo Xuanzhen stepped into the mountain gate, he suddenly became nervous, because Lin Sun and Luo Xuanfu were now hidden in his sovereign weapon. Luo Xuanfu did not care. Since his birth, his aura had been imprinted in the power of order, so it would not be sensed. But Lin Sun was different. All of a sudden, a wave of power of order stirred. Almost at the same time, the guards guarding the mountain gate were alarmed and looked at Luo Xuanzhen. Luo Xuanzhen's body suddenly stiffened, and he cursed inwardly. He did not expect that he would trigger a reaction from the power of order as soon as he stepped into the mountain gate. Seeing that the guards were suspicious and vigilant, Luo Xuanzhen did not dare to act rashly. But in merely an instant, the energy of order that had just been alarmed had returned to silence, and the guards couldn't help but relax when they saw this. The leading expert from the Luo family's branch snorted coldly, "Luo Xuanzhen, if you dare to come back so late again, I promise I will not let you step into the mountain gate." Luo Xuanzhen glanced at him and left in a hurry. In fact, he also heaved a long sigh of relief. When he returned to his residence and made sure that there was no one around, he took out his sovereign weapon. Lin Sun and Luo Xuanfu, who were hidden in it, also revealed themselves. "It's done." Luo Xuanfu's eyes lit up. This was the plan he and Lin Sun had come up with. Luo Xuanzhen would lead them into Dragon's Pine Mountain. The only problem was the detection of the power of order. But obviously they had succeeded. "This is not my credit. Uncle has the means to fight against the power of order." Luo Xuanzhen looked at Lin Sun with admiration. Lin Sun smiled and thought to himself, if the power of order of Nirvana can't even handle such a small matter, it would be the biggest joke in the world. "Now, all of you can stay here and wait for news," Lin Sun exhorted casually and walked out of Luo Xuanzhen's residence. After looking around for a while, he flew in one direction. Watching him leave, Luo Xuanzhen and Luo Xuanfu became nervous. "I just don't know if Uncle's trip will be smooth," Luo Xuanzhen said. "Definitely," Luo Xuanfu said firmly. This night was destined to not be peaceful. In the night, Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain was bathed in the soft starlight. As a first-class blessed land in the sixth heaven, Dragon's Pine Divine Mountain covers an area of an aurora. There are 36 towering peaks, stretching up and down like the spine of a giant dragon coiling around the earth. Lin Sun walked unhurriedly in the night, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye. The patrolling guards along the way didn't notice any trace of him. Before he came to Dragon's Pine Mountain, Lin Sun had obtained a road map from Luo Xuanzhen, which recorded in detail the route to Thunderbolt Mountain and Emerald Cloud Cave, as well as some prohibitions and checkpoints distributed along the route. This undoubtedly provided great convenience to Lin Sun. A quarter of an hour later, Lin Sun quietly came to a green and beautiful mountain peak. There was no accident along the way. In fact, with his current cultivation, not to mention ordinary people, even the immortal figures would find it difficult to detect his existence if they didn't carefully sense him. Emerald Cloud Peak. After a little look, Lin Sun was sure that he was not wrong. The verdant mountain in front of him was the place where Pei Ru lived and cultivated. and the Emerald Cloud Cave where his uncle Luo Qingheng and grandfather Luo Shao were imprisoned was also on this mountain. After standing and staring for a while, Lin Sun stepped up towards the Emerald Cloud Mountain. This mountain was covered in extremely exquisite restrictions and formations, and it was like layer upon layer of shapeless barriers. The slightest touch would cause these countless restrictions and formations to be instantly activated and erupt with an unimaginably terrifying and murderous calamity. However, for Lin Sun, these prohibitions and formations were not enough at all. Along the way, he silently passed through the layers of prohibitions as if he was walking on the flat ground. It didn't take long for him to reach the halfway point of the mountain. There was a cliff platform here, and on one side was a tightly closed cave residence. Both sides were planted with ancient pines and cypresses, exuding an ancient vibe. Emerald Cloud Cave. There was no one guarding this place, and it was very quiet. In fact, no one would have thought that someone could avoid the detection of the power of order and sneak into Dragon's Pine Mountain without a sound. And it was even more impossible to think that the Emerald Cloud Mountain, which was covered by layers of prohibitions and formations, could be easily entered by someone. At this moment, standing in front of the Emerald Cloud Cave, Lin Sun's heart was as calm as ice, and he didn't reveal any aura. After staring at the tightly closed door of the cave residence for a moment, he stepped forward and raised his right hand. The aura of the abyssal sword cauldron faintly appeared on his palm. When Lin Sun's palm pressed on the door, a layer of the power of order covering it suddenly disappeared like snow melting into water. It was certain that if it was someone else who pushed open the door, without any means to resist the power of order, it would lead to unpredictable consequences. Lin Sun didn't push the door and enter. Instead, his figure turned into a ray of light and quietly swept through the crack of the door. Inside the Emerald Cloud Cave there was a bloody scene. A man with disheveled hair, mottled with blood, and his body was penetrated by thick chains. He was lying horizontally in a cage like a corpse. The cage was covered with dense prohibitions, which were cold and frightening. Not far from the cage there was a blood pool in which a tall figure was lying. His eyes were closed and his skin was pale. Slender scarlet nails were inserted all over his body. Each nail was like a sharp awl. Obviously, it was an extremely strange secret treasure. Every once in a while, it would draw a drop of blood essence from the tall figure. The blood pool was covered with all kinds of magic medicines and treasures, which continuously replenished the vitality of the tall figure. Even if the blood essence in his body was constantly drawn, he wouldn't die. This strange and bloody scene caused Lin Sun's pupils to shrink abruptly, and the names of various evil secret techniques couldn't help appearing in his mind. With his current cultivation, how couldn't he see that the layout of this blood pool was obviously for the sake of continuously drawing the blood essence in the tall figure? Walking forward and staring at the face of the tall figure, Lin Sun's originally calm heart couldn't help trembling. Star Obscurity War Emperor. It really was my uncle. A scene couldn't help but appear in his mind. A very long time ago, there was once a mighty figure that dashed madly through the starry sky. Everywhere he passed, star after star exploded into pieces, and the might he revealed was simply boundlessly terrifying. He was like a big abyss, moving across the starry sky, tirelessly and without knowing where to go. In the end, there was no way forward, but he still resolutely rushed forward. I regard the universe as a chessboard, the past and the present as a chessboard, the great way as a chessbook, and my life as a chess piece to play against heaven. With my body, I build a path to extinction. With my soul, I guide the maze ahead. The heroic and decisive voice in the picture still lingered in his ears after so many years. But now, the man who crossed the starry sky and was as proud as a god was now reduced to being regarded as a prey by the enemy and suffering vicious torture day and night. The uncontrollable killing intent also rushed to Lin Sun's heart like a landslide and a tsunami, and he was almost out of control. After a while, He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. His eyes also moved to the cage not far away. The figure in the cage, with disheveled hair and bloodstains, was motionless. Only a weak vitality could prove that he was still alive. This must be Luo Xiao. His grandfather, the father that his mother Luo Qingxuan was most worried about. Without any delay, Lin Sun came to the blood pool and waved his sleeves. The strange long bloody nails inserted all over Luo Qingheng's body emerged one by one. There were a total of 72 nails, all of which had absorbed a lot of bright red blood essence. Lin Sun exerted his strength with his palms and fingers. Bang bang bang! The 72 long nails exploded inch by inch, and the accumulated blood essence was collected by Lin Sun. It turned into a bloody stream and flowed into Luo Qingheng's body. It was visible to the naked eye that Luo Qingheng's pale face recovered a lot, but he was still unconscious. After checking, Lin Sun found that Luo Qingheng's cultivation was exhausted and his soul was severely injured. He couldn't wake up for a while. Pei Ru. Wang family. Lin Sun's eyes became colder and colder. He lifted Luo Qingheng out of the blood pool and carefully put him away. Then he walked to the cage not far away and gently cut it with his fingers like a sword. The cage covered with heavy restrictions was easily broken like a piece of tofu. Crack, crack. With a burst of intensive cracking sounds, the chains penetrating Luo Xiao's body broke one by one and were pulled out with bright red blood. Luo Xiao didn't wake up either. Obviously, she was seriously injured. Lin Sun also put it away and immediately turned to leave. He didn't dare to waste any more time. After all, this was the Emerald Cloud Peak, where Pei Ru lived and cultivated. However, just as he was about to walk out of the cave, the step he was about to take suddenly stopped. Then, his figure retreated. Boom! Almost at the same time, a dazzling flying sword flashed from outside the cave residence and shot at him. The flying sword was full of the terrible and boundless immortal law. However, this sword failed to hit Lin Sun. Lin Sun, who had escaped one step in advance, suddenly burst out his extremely restrained cultivation like a divine rainbow. He rushed straight to the top of the cave residence. Boom! The mountain rock wall that was blocking his head was also easily broken apart. Stone fragments exploded and scattered in all directions, producing rumbling sounds. In just a breath's time, Lin Sun's figure appeared over the top of the Emerald Cloud Mountain. Where he rushed all the way, the Emerald Cloud Mountain seemed to be split from the middle up by a peerless sword and collapsed at this moment. The restrictive power that enveloped the entire Emerald Cloud Mountain suddenly shook violently, releasing a violent and dazzling divine radiance of the Tao patterns and restrictions. P.S. Keep updating tonight. Chapter 2740. The main hall of the Luo family. The lights were bright and the atmosphere was extremely depressing. On the main seat, Luo Chang's expression was gloomy. It has been 9 days since Ancestor Yunhe left, but there is no news from him. Could it be that something really happened? Someone couldn't help but ask, breaking the silence. 9 days. Enough time to travel back and forth between the Luo family and the sky-splitting Thunder Sea 3 times. In this world, which force can swallow Ancestor Yunhe and his people in one fell swoop? Even if a fierce battle breaks out, with Ancestor Yunhe's means, if he wants to escape, even an immortal can't stop him. Someone frowned, very puzzled. Could it be that the Yao family and the Ling family joined forces, using Luo Feng as bait to set up an inescapable net? Someone guessed. No matter what, I'm afraid we can't rely on luck anymore. Our top priority is to take action and find out the truth, otherwise, our Luo family will be in danger. In the midst of the discussion, Luo Chong, who was sitting on the main seat, was silent. Luo Feng's capture was a heavy blow to him, and now Luo Yunhe and his people are likely to be in trouble. This made him feel like he was going crazy. How could this be? Why is this happening? How can such a huge Luo family be in trouble recently? Could it be that the sixth heaven can no longer accommodate the Luo family? This series of blows was like a sharp knife stabbing into Luo Chang's heart. After living for so many years, this was the first time he felt so angry and powerless. Patriarch, we can't sit still anymore, we must take the initiative to attack. First, Feng disappeared, followed by Ancestor Yun He and his people. No matter who did it, we can be sure that this is a conspiracy against our Luo family. We must take action. Someone said anxiously. The eyes of the other big shots also looked at Luo Chong. Luo Chong took a deep breath, suppressing the irritation and anger in his heart. Action? If we don't know the enemy, how can we act? However, you are right. Our Luo family is likely to be caught in a conspiracy that concerns our survival. We can't sit still and wait for death. After saying that, he issued an order. Announce that from today onwards, all forces of the Luo family will be mobilized and stationed in Dragon Ridge Divine Mountain. Everyone was stunned. Are they going to retreat? Do you have a better plan? Luo Chong asked coldly. The hall was silent. No one replied, and they all looked at each other in dismay. I do. Suddenly, a magnetic voice resounded from outside the hall. After that, Pei Ru, who had a dignified and charming appearance and a graceful figure, appeared outside the hall. If I had gone to save Feng back then, how could such an accident have occurred? Pei Ru spoke as she walked into the hall, and her casual words caused everyone to feel extremely uncomfortable. Madam, now that things have come to this, there's no need to make sarcastic remarks, right? Luo Chong forced a smile. This is not sarcasm, it's the truth. Pei Ru spoke indifferently. Right now, the Luo clan has fallen into an abyss of suffering, and only I can help the Luo clan deal with this calamity. She appeared to be extremely confident. Luo Chong smiled and said, If Madam makes a move, it would naturally be for the best. Pei Ru glanced at him and said, Even now, you still intend to continue playing dumb? My request is very simple, I just want to borrow the Limitless God book, to take a look. This, Luo Chang's expression was uncertain. At this moment, a panicked voice came from outside the hall, Clan leader, bad news, there's a battle in the Emerald Cloud Peak, and the peak has been destroyed. What? Everyone in the hall was shocked. Especially Pei Ru, her pretty face changed, and she immediately rushed out of the hall. The Emerald Cloud Peak was her place of meditation. Let's go and have a look. Luo Chong took a deep breath and hurriedly led a group of big shots to move. Dragon's Pine Mountain was the Luo clan's territory, and it was covered with countless restrictions and order energy, but under such circumstances, there was actually a battle in the Emerald Cloud Peak. This made everyone have a premonition that things were not going well. First, Luo Feng was in trouble, followed by Luo Yunhe and the others who had not been heard from until now, and now this happened late at night. Who could remain calm? The collapsing peak rumbled, and billowing smoke and dust rose. Above the sea of clouds, as soon as Lin Sun's figure appeared, he was attacked by a purple jade ruler, filled with majestic immortal light, and it was extremely terrifying. Lin Sun, who had fought with immortal figures many times, immediately dodged far away. Boom! The sea of clouds shattered, the void collapsed, and the terrifying immortal turbulence raged, producing turbulent destructive power. If he had been a little slower in retreating just now, the consequences would have been absolutely serious. Exclamations sounded in the distance. Immediately afterward, two figures appeared out of thin air. On the left was a man with long red hair and a golden robe. He looked like a teenager, standing on a snow-white Dao sword. On the right was a tall and mighty bald old man, holding a purple jade ruler in his hand. His eyes were burning like torches, frightening people's souls. Both of them were filled with terrifying immortal aura, standing there like a ruler. They were the two old servants beside Pei Ru. The young man with red hair and golden robe was called He Boyong. The bald old man was called Yu Huai. At this moment, the immortal will of both of them were firmly locked on Lin Sun, with a look of surprise. A Zhu Xian emperor? This was something they didn't expect. No, you are Lin Sun? Suddenly, He Boyong thought of something, and his eyes became extremely bright. Ha ha, yes, in this sixth heaven, if there is any Zhu Xian emperor who can avoid the attack of me and Yu Huai, it must be you, the remnant of Fang Cun. He seemed very excited, as if he had found a rare treasure. Yu Huai also smiled. Yes, it should be him. I just didn't expect this kid to be so bold, daring to sneak into Dragon Spine Divine Mountain. If it wasn't for the sudden explosion of the Blood Soul Divine Nail, this kid would have slipped away. Blood Soul Divine Nail. Lin Sun finally realized what went wrong, but he didn't panic. Instead, he smiled. You two are the two old dogs of the Wang family, right? To tell you the truth, I didn't plan to leave like this time. He looked very calm and composed. He Boyong and Yu Huai looked at each other. So, you are here for revenge? Lin Sun said. Do you still need to ask? The calmer he was, the more vigilant He Boyong and Yu Huai became. As immortal figures, they could disregard any emperor ancestor realm figure, but they couldn't ignore the successor of Fang Cun. All the achievements he had in the past showed that he was a freak that could fight and even threaten immortal figures. It seems that not only Luo Yunshan, but even Luo Yunhe was killed by you? Yu Huai's eyes were like torches as he stared at Lin Sun, and the terrifying immortal pressure was enough to make any Emperor Realm figure collapse. But Lin Sun seemed to be completely unaware and said, Are you very surprised? He Boyong and Yu Huai frowned, and they were slightly surprised and bewildered. Of course, they wouldn't be frightened by these few words, but they still had the necessary vigilance, because this young man before them was really different from others, and they needed to take him seriously. Is this why you dare to come here? If so, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave alive this time. He Boyong also smiled, and his eyes were burning. I won't hide it from you. For these countless years, we have been waiting for you to appear. So long as we catch you, the secrets of the devouring abyss, the heaven-accessing place, the sword of fate, the eternal coffin will no longer belong to you. Lin Sun sneered. So much nonsense. Why do you directly take action? Are you worried that you will be killed like Luo Yunshan and Luo Yunhe? He Boyong laughed and asked, What about you? Why don't you run away or take action? Lin Sun glanced around and said, Such a big movement, those big shots of the branch of Luo family should have already been alarmed, right? Yu Huai raised his eyebrows and said, You're not so crazy that you want to fight with the whole Luo family, are you? Lin Sun corrected him seriously. Wrong, I want to end the hatred with the branch of Luo family. He Boyong and Yu Huai couldn't help but look at each other again. They both felt it was ridiculous and unbelievable. They couldn't imagine where Lin Sun got the courage to be so arrogant. This was Dragon's Pine Mountain, the hinterland of Luo family. Even if the ancestor of Juetian Emperor had extraordinary means, how could he be so rampant and arrogant under such circumstances? Even if you came prepared, even if you don't take the branch of Luo family seriously, do you really think we are just decorations? He Boyong frowned and his voice became cold. Whether Lin Sun was bluffing or he had something to rely on, they would never give Lin Sun a chance to escape this time. To be honest, you are just a little better than decorations, Lin Sun said seriously. This was a provocation and a kind of contempt. He Boyong and Yu Huai both narrowed their eyes, with killing intent surging in them. It had been many years since anyone dared to talk to them like this. Even Luo Chong, the patriarch of Luo family, had to be respectful to them. The attitude of the young man opposite them seemed calm, but in fact, he was extremely arrogant. If you still want to continue talking, wait a little longer. When everyone is here, I will send you away so that you can have company on the way. Lin Sun said and looked into the distance. The turmoil in Emerald Mountain couldn't be concealed at all. It had already alarmed the whole Luo family. At this time, there were many uproars and shouts in the distance. When Pei Ru, Luo Chong and others flew over, they saw the scene of Lin Sun, He Boyong and Yu Huai confronting each other above the sea of clouds. For a moment, their faces darkened. At the same time, Lin Sun also saw Pei Ru, Luo Chong and other big shots of Luo family. He couldn't help but smile coldly and said, "Are you all here? Bold thief, how dare you break into our Luo family and make trouble? You are courting death." A grumpy old man couldn't help but shout. "Look, this is Lin Sun, the one we have been thinking about for many years." At the same time, He Boyong directly pointed out Lin Sun's identity. Lin Sun. All of a sudden, Luo Chong, Pei Ru and others showed a look of disbelief, and almost couldn't believe their ears. How could it be him? P.S. Send more updates to me. Chapter 2741. Lin Sun. The young man whom the Luo family hated and longed for so much had appeared in the Luo family's territory tonight. This feeling, it was as if a prey that had not been able to capture after much effort had actually taken the initiative to come knocking on the door. The accident had come so suddenly that it had completely caught one off guard. At this moment, Luo Chong was overjoyed. He looked up to the sky and laughed. "Lin Sun, it turns out that you are Lin Sun. Ha ha, it's so easy to find you." After the initial shock, the big shots of the Luo family's branches nearby also became excited, and all of them were smiling from ear to ear. "Ha ha, this guy actually threw himself into the trap. It's really fate that makes fools of people. Could it be that this kid has turned over a new leaf and decided to work for our Luo clan?" Various voices sounded. Lin Sun had a strange look in his eyes. It was too early for these guys to be happy. In fact, they couldn't blame Luo Chong for being so excited. Lin Sun not only had the talent of devouring abyss awakened, but also had the heaven accessing place, sword of fate and other treasures. These were the treasures that Luo Chong and others had been longing for countless years. "Guys, since this guy dares to appear here, he must have something to rely on." Pei Ru's eyes were also shining, but she was relatively calm. As expected, the next moment, He Boyong said, "It's certain that Luo Feng was captured by this guy, and Luo Yunshan, Luo Yunha and others were all killed by this guy. That is to say, some of the twists and turns that Luo family has suffered during this period are all caused by this guy." These words made the smiles on the faces of Luo Chong and others disappear. The excitement in their hearts was also replaced by an indescribable anger. All of them looked extremely terrible. During this period, because Luo Feng was held hostage, there was no news from Luo Yunha and others, which almost drove them crazy. They all thought that it must be a big force that did this. Who could have thought that all this was done by Lin Sun alone? For a moment, they couldn't wait to kill Lin Sun. "It's you, little bastard!" Luo Chong shouted. "Where is Feng? Where did you hide him?" The others were also full of killing intent. Lin Sun laughed. "At this time, if you hurry to the sky-splitting Thunder Sea, you might be able to help your so-called Feng pick up some ashes." All of a sudden, Luo Feng felt a sharp pain in her heart and her face turned green. You killed Feng, evil creature. You should be hacked into pieces." The big shots of the Luo family were also furious. Luo Feng was their branch's only ancestor Juing. But now she was killed. This was tantamount to killing the Luo family's hope of rising in the future. The heavens and the earth were murderous, and the terrifying killing intent was like a torrent that covered the entire area. Even further away, countless members of the Luo clan, including their subordinates, maids, and servants, were alarmed. They watched from afar, and no one dared to approach. Luo Xuanzhen was also among them. When he saw Lin Sun, who was besieged in the sky above Emerald Cloud Peak, his heart sank to the bottom, and his hands and feet went cold. It's over in this kind of situation. How could they talk about saving the elders of the main bloodline? Uncle himself might not even be able to protect himself. "Miss, this kid is very difficult to deal with. He should have a trump card that can threaten the immortal realm. But if we really fight, it won't be difficult to capture him." In the void, the tall and mighty bald old man Yu Huai said coldly, "Now it's up to you." Pei Ru's expression was indifferent as she said, "A very long time ago, my husband once promised that so long as we capture this kid, then the heaven-reaching secret realm, sword of creation, and other treasures in his possession will belong to us. Since it's like this, why hesitate and just make a move?" Luo Chang's expression changed slightly, and he was about to say something. Boom! In the sky, the immortal Tao light shot out. Yu Huai attacked brazenly. His figure was ferocious. As soon as he attacked, he was like an invincible god of war. He clenched his fist, and the dazzling immortal Tao light gathered, causing the void nearby to collapse. When he punched out, it felt like the world was collapsing, and everything was being destroyed. It was terrifying. The people watching from afar felt their eyes sting, and their minds were shocked. They almost fell to the ground. Even the big shots around Luo Chong were stiff, and their hair stood on end. Although they were emperor ancestors, they also felt great pressure at this moment. Because this was the power of the immortal realm. He Boyong also attacked at the same time. Clang! The snow-white Taoist sword that he had been stepping on emitted a clear sword cry like a dragon's roar. In an instant, the white sword chi shot into the sky, and the peerless immortal law filled the sword's edge as it slashed towards Lin Sun. The white Taoist sword. A real immortal Taoist sword. At this moment, as soon as it slashed out, the majestic sword will seem to split the world in half. It was swift and fierce to the extreme. From this, it could be seen that these two immortal realm figures didn't hold back when they attacked. Because from the moment they saw through Lin Sun's identity, they didn't underestimate him at all. They knew very well that Lin Sun had a trump card that could threaten the immortal realm figures. Therefore, they didn't intend to give Lin Sun a chance to use his trump card. Whether it was Yu Huai's punch or He Boyang's sword, both were unimaginably powerful. But Lin Sun stood where he was, motionless. Only a black jade box suddenly appeared in front of him. It was less than a foot long and 4 fingers thick. It was dark and dull, simple and unadorned. Boom! Yu Huai's terrible fist power enveloped Lin Sun like a landslide and a tsunami. The void around Lin Sun was instantly smashed, and terrible turbulence splashed out. But the place where Lin Sun stood was like an unshakable reef. The fist power full of immortal law was so terrible, but it was blocked a foot away from Lin Sun, unable to advance any further. Yu Huai's pupils shrank. This punch could easily smash any Zhu Xian emperor or ancestor, but it was blocked by an invisible, terrible, and mysterious power. Swish! Almost at the same time, the white Taoist sword slashed over. Lin Sun still didn't move. This immortal Taoist weapon was so fierce and overbearing that it could easily collapse the sky. But when it was a foot away from Lin Sun's head, it was blocked. It buzzed fiercely, as if it had hit an indestructible barrier. He Boyang's face also changed slightly. His and Yu Huai's eyes fell on the black jade box that appeared in front of Lin Sun. "It's that black jade box." Luo Chang's expression was uncertain. As for the others, they were already shocked. Who could believe that a single Zhu Xian emperor could block the attack of two immortal figures like this? At this moment, Lin Sun's eyes were focused on the black jade box. His clothes fluttered, and he didn't seem nervous at all. He was calm and composed. He stretched out his hand to open the black jade box. His movements were gentle, and his expression became solemn. This abnormal scene made He Boyang and Yu Huai's heart skip a beat. They both realized that something was wrong, and they launched the most terrible attack without hesitation. Rise! In front of Yu Huai, the purple jade ruler rose up and transformed into billions of immortal light. At that moment, it was like a purple sun rising above Dragon Spine Mountain, so blazing and dazzling. "Go!" he shouted. The purple jade ruler suddenly rose into the air and crushed the void. With a rumbling sound, it pressed down on Lin Sun. At the same time, He Boyang also used his supreme secret method. The white-Li Taoist sword flashed and transformed into hundreds of thousands of flying swords, which gathered into a mysterious immortal sword formation. As the terrifying might spread out, it caused countless shocked exclamations to resound in the surroundings, and even the other mountains that stood towering in the vicinity started to shake violently. Unrelated people, get out of the way! With a shout, Luo Chong immediately released a bronze seal. The obscure power of order emerged from the seal and instantly spread out. Suddenly, the huge dragon spine mountain seemed to wake up from silence. The power of the Order of Thunder intersected and appeared on every mountain peak, glowing with dazzling light. Only then did the power of the two immortal figures offset and dissolve the terrible power released by them. But before the crowd could relax, a scene that made them dumbfounded appeared. Whether it was Yu Huai's purple jade ruler or He Boyang's terrifying immortal sword formation, they were all blocked within a foot of Lin Sun. They couldn't advance an inch. They couldn't hurt Lin Sun at all. Even his expression didn't change at all. Many people stared with their eyes wide open. They couldn't even say a word. Luo Chong also gasped. What kind of treasure was that black jade box? How could it withstand the full power attack of two immortal figures? At this time, Lin Sun had already opened the black jade box, and a fine and dreamy light rain also drifted out from it, transforming into illusory light and shadow. He Boyang and Yu Huai's faces were already gloomy. They were shocked and angry. They crazily urged their power, but it still didn't help. Only the sky was full of roaring Taoist light. They couldn't hurt Lin Sun at all. I don't believe it. Suddenly, Pei Ru's graceful and slender figure shot up into the sky. She raised her hand and a strange and mysterious black pagoda appeared between her fingers. At the bottom of the pagoda was a lotus with 36 petals. At the top of the pagoda was a black god statue sitting in the lotus position. It had 3 heads and 6 arms. It had the head of a bird and the body of a human. It held a Taoist sword, seal, horsetail whisk, bell, prayer beads, scriptures, and other treasures. Immortal Taoist weapon, Xianfan Lotus Pagoda. Go! As Pei Ru waved her hand, the strange black pagoda rose into the sky and rotated. The 36 petals of the lotus shone brightly, as if it had evolved into 36 different vast worlds. The figure sitting in the lotus position suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. He stepped on the 36 worlds and waved his 3 heads and 6 arms. He was like a supreme heavenly lord and attacked Lin Sun fiercely. Bang! 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 The world was turned upside down. The figure, like a heavenly lord, was extremely horrible. Every time he attacked, the sky and the earth shook. The terrible Taoist light swept across and spread. Many people nearby were shocked. Their blood was boiling, their souls were frightened, and they saw stars in front of their eyes. Some clansmen of Luo clan who were watching in the distance reacted quickly and ran far away. Those who reacted slowly directly collapsed on the ground and fainted.